Chapter 398. No one could face the grudge of their son's death calmly. Wu Taojiang was the same, but after hearing the imperial advisor's words, Wu Taojiang couldn't help but calm down. He stared at Jiang Chun, the killing intent in his eyes growing stronger, but he was hesitant. He wanted to kill Jiang Chun, but what if Jiang Chun was really someone in the Great Tribulation of Providence? At that time, the entire Nine-Li dynasty would be destroyed. As the ruler of a country, sometimes there were things that were beyond his control. He couldn't just think for himself. He had to think for the entire Nine-Li dynasty. What if he's not someone in the Great Tribulation of Providence? Wu Taojiang asked. Just for a while. After this period, we'll know if he's someone in the Great Tribulation of Providence, the imperial advisor said. Not long, 1 month. Okay, Wu Taojiang said coldly. I'll let you go for a month first. That's right. If there's anything, we'll deal with it after a month, Mu Linchen said with a smile. Who knew where Jiang Chun would go after a month, or if they could still find him? The most urgent thing right now was to protect Jiang Chun. Not to mention a month. Even if it's 10,000 years later, my Qin Kong clan will protect this person. Qin Kong Confucian scholar landed from the sky. He was injured, but it wasn't a big problem. When Wu Taojiang looked at Qin Kong Confucian scholar, a hint of fear flashed in his eyes. Qin Kong Confucian scholar had just entered the immortal state, but he had reached the heavens decay 3rd stage. The gap between their realms was so big, but he couldn't suppress Qin Kong Confucian scholar. He could only tie with him. If the blue sky Confucian scholar's cultivation base was higher, how could Wu Taojiang deal with him? Come back to White Sovereign City with me and marry Fengyu, Emperor Bai said with a smile. Now, you don't have to carry the coffin, right? Jiang Qin trembled and said weakly, Can I not go? Not go? What do you think? Emperor Bai raised his eyebrows. My 3,000 white coat army has been waiting for you, the son-in-law of White Sovereign City. Are you threatening me? Jiang Chun said angrily. Yes, it's a threat. What's wrong? The White Emperor mocked. Is it useless? Ahem, it's not good for this old man to interfere in matters like marriage. The Blue Sky scholar coughed a few times and waved his hand at the people of the Blue Sky clan. You can all go back. Grand Ancestor, you can't just ignore this. Jiang Chun was anxious and said, I went to the underworld continent and risked my life for you. Now you're abandoning me? White Emperor won't harm you. The Blue Sky Confucian scholar glared at him and said, Besides, you're not young anymore. It's time for you to get married. What? Bai Jiangye's expression darkened. The number of people who want to marry my granddaughter can line up from underworld all the way to central continent. But I'm her master, Jiang Qin said, a master-disciple relationship. How romantic. Suddenly, the 9th princess appeared beside Wu Taojiang. She looked at Jiang Chun with a smile and said, Master, a master-disciple relationship has always been desirable since ancient times. Romantic my ass. Jiang Chen's expression darkened. After a while, he wondered if he should take the opportunity to sneak away. After all, Jiang Chen was not in the mood to start a family now. His marriage with Li Qin was only an agreement. When Jiang Chun left the underworld continent, he and Li Qin would not be considered husband and wife. Father. At this moment, a young man flew over from afar. He was wearing a yellow robe with 8 dragons. He stood tall and straight, and stars seemed to swirl in his eyes when he opened and closed them. As soon as this person appeared, he first cupped his hands at the people around him. He seemed very polite. Then he said loudly, Of course I have to avenge my son. But I also understand what you mean. You don't want my father to bully the young, right? Who is this? Everyone's eyes narrowed when they heard that. They stared at the young man and felt that he was slightly extraordinary. Then my father won't do anything, and the ministers won't do anything. The prince, will take action to avenge my brother. You have no objections, right? The young man said. As soon as he said that, Qin Kong Confucian scholar and the others couldn't help but look strange. After all, the reason why they came here to help Jiang Chun was that the cultivation gap between Jiang Chun and Wu Taojiang was too big. If their cultivation was similar, Qin Kong Confucian scholar wouldn't have bothered to come. Now, this young man's words not only gave the Ninely dynasty a way out, but also showed that he didn't want to give up on Jiangchun. Of course, due to the Ninely dynasty's luck, the battle between me and him won't be a battle of life and death. You can rest assured, the young man said with a smile and a trace of confidence on his face. He said, "How about it? Everyone, will you give the Ninely dynasty face?" "I have no objections." Qin Kong Confucian scholar nodded immediately and said with a smile, "It's just a spar." "I have no objections either." Emperor Bai's expression was strange. He glanced at Jiang Chun and thought to himself, how powerful is he now? It shouldn't be a problem, right? At that moment, the one with the strangest expression was Jiang Chun. He looked at the young man and asked, "The second prince is ranked third among the princes. What about you?" "I am the ninth prince, ranked second," the young man said. "Oh, then I can play with you." Jiang Chun curled his lips and looked at Wu Taojiang. He asked, "Then shall I start?" "I won't kill you today, but I won't let you go back happily." Wu Taojiang shouted angrily. Then he said to the ninth prince, "Hit him hard." "Yes, father." The ninth prince nodded. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure had already rushed out. He was like a dragon. As he rushed out, the air was distorted. When he got close to Jiang Chun, he formed a seal with his hands, and a sword of light appeared. Sword chi surged and circled in the air like a dragon snake. The cold light of the sword shone in all directions. It went against the heavens and headed straight for Jiang Chun. "I say, you are a king sage. Save it." Jiang Chun curled his lips and took out chasing the heavens. He slashed with the sword. Buzz! In the next moment, a rainbow-like sword radiance exploded and shattered the sword radiance that the ninth prince had shot out. Then, the sword radiance did not slow down and stood on the ninth prince's shoulder. The power of chasing the heavens was comparable to the heavens. However, when the sword landed, everyone heard a sound that sounded like a bell being rung on the ninth prince's shoulder. Upon closer inspection, a layer of something similar to green gold had appeared on the ninth prince's body. It was this material that had blocked Jiang Chen's sword. Moreover, the ninth prince was unharmed. Green gold Tao spirit. Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. This type of Tao spirit was both offensive and defensive and was known to be unbreakable. Lower heaven realm. To be able to fight with me, you are indeed worthy of being Chunzuan sect leader, Jiang Chen. The ninth prince said softly, but his face revealed a trace of contempt. Chapter 399. The ninth prince was ranked second among the many princes in the Ninely dynasty. There was no need to talk about his strength. Moreover, he had the Azuite Tao soul. "You seem very confident," Jiang Chun said mockingly. "If you lose later, it will be very embarrassing." "Lose? Do you think that's possible?" The ninth prince said disdainfully. "You are just an ant in my eyes." "Is that so?" Jiang Chun smiled, and his figure suddenly dimmed. Whoosh! When he appeared again, he was already standing in front of the ninth prince. Before the ninth prince could react, Jiang Chun slashed out with his sword. The sword ray was like a crescent moon that slashed the top of the ninth prince's head. Boom! Following a dull sound, the ninth prince's body shook violently. Cracks appeared on the Azuite Tao soul that covered the top of his head. It was almost cut open. The Azuite Tao soul is not something that you can break. The ninth prince's eyes narrowed. Although he was not injured, he was still embarrassed after being slashed on the top of his head. As soon as he said that, the light sword in the ninth prince's hand slashed out. It was like a dragon that had awakened. With a roar, it landed on Jiang Chen's body. But Jiang Chen was full of smiles. He allowed the light sword to hit his shoulder, but he was not injured at all. "Your Azuite Tao soul is strong, but my physical body is not weaker than your Azuite Tao soul," Jiang Chen said softly. The light of the sun and the moon burst forth from his eyes. A terrifying mental strength spread out. His eyes turned into the sun and the moon as he stared at the ninth prince. At that moment, the ninth prince was in a trance. It was as if he had lost his mind. At that moment, Jiang Chun raised chasing heaven with both hands and slashed down at the ninth prince again. Boom! At that moment, an ear-piercing explosion was heard. The azurite Dao soul that covered the ninth prince's head was cut open. However, Jiang Chun did not continue to slash down with chasing heaven. This was because if he went any deeper, he would have killed the ninth prince. Since they had agreed to spar, Jiang Chun would not take the ninth prince's life. Moreover, Jiang Chun had already killed a prince. If he killed another prince, Wu Taojiang would be furious. You are courting death. However, just as Jiang Chun was about to stop, the ninth prince had already regained his senses. With a furious roar, his aura skyrocketed. A golden sword flew out of the void and landed in his hand. Then the ninth prince slashed out with his sword. The sword light was vast and mighty, and it was as if the entire area had turned into a furnace of sword light. You have already lost. You still want to fight? You can't afford to lose? Nearby, White Emperor and the others scolded Jiang Chun angrily. They even wiped the cold sweat off Jiang Chun's forehead. It was because Jiang Chun didn't attack, because he didn't expect that the ninth prince would still attack after he had been defeated. In this way, it would be difficult for Jiang Chun to block the ninth prince's sword attack if he wasn't prepared for it. Boom! However, when the radiance of the sword disappeared, the crowd heard a deafening sound, and they saw an emperor's vine standing in front of Jiang Chun. The emperor's vine was purplish gold in color. It stood tall in front of Suimo. Its vines swayed gently, emitting a radiance similar to divine light, which protected Jiang Chun within it. If we fight again, it will not be a spar, but a battle to the death. Jiang Chun said coldly. A battle to the death. Why should I be afraid of you? The ninth prince said. You have to ask your father if he agrees, Jiang Chun said mockingly. I don't think he will. After all, one of his sons has already died. If another one dies, I'm afraid he won't be able to accept it. Enough! As soon as Jiang Chun finished speaking, Wu Taojiang shouted angrily. Staring at the ninth prince, he said, Why haven't you come back yet? Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? Father, I was just careless. The ninth prince was flustered. He only wanted to show off in front of Wu Taojiang so that he could prepare for the prince's position in the future. Who would have thought that not only did he fail to show off, he even embarrassed himself. In a situation where he was defeated, he still continued to attack in front of everyone. This matter was witnessed by everyone. Is the ninth prince a sore loser? Emperor Bai said mockingly. It seems like the princes of the Nine-Li dynasty are nothing much after all. Ninth brother is still young and doesn't know any better. Please don't blame him. Suddenly, a young man in white flew over. Before he even arrived, his voice had already reached this place. After a few breaths of time, he descended like an immortal and bowed to Wu Taojiang. Greetings, father. You're back? Wu Taojiang said softly. His eyes were filled with pride. That was because he was the most powerful one among his sons. Wu Taojiang liked his way of dealing with people and the way he conducted himself. If Wu Feng wasn't the empress's son, the prince's position would have been taken by the young man in white. Ninth brother, you must be magnanimous. If you lose, you must be able to accept it. The young man in white smiled at the ninth prince. Do you need me to help you meet him? Wu Heng, don't be a hypocrite, the ninth prince said coldly. How can I not know what you're thinking? Ninth brother, you've misunderstood me. Wu Heng smiled bitterly. Jiang Chen's name is known throughout the 7 states. He's the best among the younger generation. There are even rumors that he's invincible in the same realm. It's rare to meet him today. Naturally, I want to spar with him, Wu Heng said. Then, Wu Heng couldn't be bothered with the ninth prince anymore. He turned to look at Jiang Chun and said, Nine-Li Dynasty's 6th prince, Wu Heng, would like to spar with sect leader Jiang Chun. How can I ask for your advice? Jiang Chun's expression turned serious. Jiang Chun could feel that Wu Heng was very powerful. The aura that he exuded was as if he was born to be an expert. Spar with you in the same realm, Wu Heng said. Since it's a spar, it has to be fair. Are you sure? Jiang Chun said softly. He was getting more and more nervous. In the past, if someone told Jiang Chun that they wanted to spar with him in the same realm, Jiang Chen would be happy. But now, Jiang Chen didn't dare to be careless when facing Wu Heng. Jiang Chen had a feeling that Wu Heng's power and talent weren't below his rival, Mu Xingyun. Ordinary people couldn't sense how powerful Mu Xingyun was. Only Jiang Chen knew that Mu Xingyun's power wasn't below his. And now, Jiang Chen met another one in the nether region. Come. At that moment, Wu Heng said softly. His cultivation was suppressed to the lower level of the heaven realm. Then, he took a step forward and a long sword appeared in his hand. With a loud hum, there seemed to be thunder coming out. At that moment, Wu Heng gave people the feeling that he was a sharp sword. Man and sword as one. Jiang Chen was shocked. He had reached the peak of the sword Dao. This kind of person, even if he didn't have any cultivation, could spar with ordinary cultivators in the state of man and sword as one. Today, I'll draw my sword for you. Wu Heng pointed his sword at Jiang Chen and said, Fight. Chapter 400. Fight. At this moment, Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. With a long roar, chasing heaven was held horizontally in front of him. Buzz! With a roar, Jiang Chen's aura suddenly changed. His entire person gave off a very sharp feeling. The sky chaser in his hand was emitting an intense radiance, as if it was a sun. What? One with the sword? He has also reached such a level in the sword Dao? Exclamations sounded one after another. Even Wu Heng was stunned. One had to know that he, Wu Heng, was a natural swordsman. That was why he could reach the realm of one with the sword at such a young age. But Jiang Chen, then let's try and see whose sword Dao attainments are more profound. Wu Heng's eyes narrowed, and sword light burst forth from his eyes. As his voice fell, he raised his sword and charged out. His body was like a long rainbow, heading straight for Jiang Chen, proficient in all professions. Jiang Chen said softly. Then the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and he said, Come, boom. In the next moment, the two people were like two sharp swords colliding in the air. In an instant, rays of sword light burst forth like a fierce wind, whistling and sweeping in all directions. In the eyes of the crowd, what they saw was no longer two people fighting, but two sharp swords colliding in the air. The two people's sword techniques looked very simple and unadorned. Sword after sword slashed out without using a trace of martial arts. However, if one looked carefully, one would feel that each sword strike carried an extremely terrifying sword intent. Under that seemingly ordinary sword strike, there was a deep aura of death. Every sword was fatal. After about half an instant's time, Jiang Chen and Wu Heng collided and retreated more than 10 steps. Then, the two people faced each other in battle. The long swords in their hands hummed, their robes fluttered, and their hair fluttered behind them like swimming dragons. Your sword Dao, who taught you? Wu Heng asked. Self-taught, Jiang Chen said softly and praised. At your age, to have such attainments in the sword Dao is really extraordinary. Is it just extraordinary? Wu Heng raised his brows and said, If my sword Dao can only be considered as extraordinary amongst my peers, then the sword Dao of others isn't sword Dao. You're really arrogant. Jiang Chen snorted lightly. Suddenly, a terrifying sword intent erupted from his body. Similarly, the sword intent on Wu Heng's body also suddenly skyrocketed. At this moment, Wu Heng's figure jumped up from his original spot. The long sword in his hand followed a strange trajectory and slashed out 6 times consecutively in the air. Under the 6 swords, the sky changed color, and even the surrounding heaven and earth Yuan Qi was shaken into nothingness. The 6 swords were like 6 dazzling suns, piercing down one after another, twisting the air and causing the void to tremble. Wherever he passed, dragon roars could be heard. Dragon sword. 6 clears. Someone cried out in surprise. Wu Heng finally used a martial technique. Moreover, this martial skill was the strongest sword martial skill in the 9 Li dynasty. According to legend, the dragon sword technique had a total of 9 swords. Since the establishment of the Ninely dynasty, only one person had cultivated the dragon sword technique to 9 swords, which was the so-called 9 clears. And now, Wu Heng had cultivated the dragon sword technique to 6 clears at such a young age. He was very likely to become the second person to cultivate the dragon sword technique to 9 clears. Dragon sword, is it? Jiang Chun said softly. Raising his hand, he slashed out with his sword. But in his heart, he shouted softly, Baron. The next moment, everyone saw that wherever Jiang Chen's sword light passed, everything withered. Even the stones on the ground turned into dust. When this sword light collided with the 6 clear sword light, in just an instant, the 6 sword lights dissipated. This is the desolate god's inheritance. Supreme sword intent. Someone cried out in surprise, knowing that previously in the desolate god Dao field, it was Jiang Chun who obtained the desolate god's inheritance. And that inheritance was precisely the supreme sword intent Baron. 7 clears. At this moment, Wu Heng roared. The spiritual energy in his body erupted, and even the power of heaven surged on his body, only to see him turn around and spin, the long sword in his hand, slashing out 7 sword lights in succession. 7 clears? Prince Wu Heng's sword Dao attainments can be said to be number 1 among his age. Heh, number 1? Are you blind? The Jiang Chun who is fighting with him right now, his sword Dao attainments won't be beneath Wu Heng's. Some people cried out in surprise, and some people were visibly moved, their gazes glued on Jiang Chun and Wu Heng. At the same time, Wu Taojiang's hands drew together slightly, 5 fingers clenching slightly, a hint of nervousness flashing across his eyes. All because Wu Heng was the most powerful prince in the 9 Li dynasty. If Wu Heng lost, then the 9 Li imperial dynasty's face would be lost. Do you know what Baron is? At this moment, Jiang Chun gave a light laugh and slashed out with his sword again. In this sword, it still contained the supreme sword intent, Baron. I don't know what Baron is. I only know that as long as the sword exists, so will the person. Wu Heng raised his eyebrows, and the sword light in his eyes exploded. At the same time, the 7 clear sword light already collided with the second sword light that Jiang Chun struck out. Boom! Boom! This time, the sound of the sword light colliding was heard. However, merely 3 breaths later, only to see the Baron's sword light suddenly dimmed, as if it was about to be annihilated. 7 clears defeated Baron. Someone exclaimed, his eyes wide open, as if he could not believe what he saw before his eyes. After all, in the eyes of everyone, no matter how strong the dragon sword was, it could not compare to the supreme sword intent of the origami. 7 clears defeated Baron? Heh! Emperor Bai sneered and said, how ignorant. Buzz! Just as his voice fell, he saw that Jiang Chen's sword light that was originally about to be annihilated suddenly skyrocketed. Next, the 7 clears sword light withered like grass, withering until it was annihilated and disappeared. Moreover, the Baron sword light's momentum did not decrease. Like a black dragon, it charged towards Wu Heng. 8 clears. Wu Heng's heart was also burning with anger. He did not believe that the dragon sword technique was inferior to Baron. The aura on his body skyrocketed again. Sword shadows stacked in front of him, and then 8 sword lights exploded. Roar! Roar! At this moment, under the sword light, everyone seemed to see 8 real dragons roaring. There was even a dragon's aura spreading. When the 8 dragons roared and attacked, the sword light was like a divine dragon swinging its tail, bombarding the Baron sword light. This time, the Baron sword light was shattered. However, before Wu Heng could breathe a sigh of relief, Jiang Chun smiled and swung 6 swords. 6 swords, 6 Baron sword lights. 8 clears can only block one of my Baron sword lights. Jiang Chun said mockingly. How are you going to block these 6 Baron swords? Of course I'm going to block it with my sword. Although Wu Heng's expression was solemn, his eyes still shone with confidence. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone saw Wu Heng wave his hand, and another sharp sword appeared in his hand. Holding two swords, his body flew up. In 3 breaths' time, 64 sword lights exploded. What is that? It doesn't look like a martial technique from the Ninely dynasty, nor does it look like sorcery. Many people were puzzled. They had never seen Wu Heng use such a martial technique before. However, when Jiang Chun saw this, his expression suddenly turned gloomy, and his heart tightened slightly. Chapter 401. Jiang Chun knew most of the martial arts techniques in the world. Therefore, when he saw Wu Heng's 64 sword gleams slashing out, he knew that this martial arts technique was not from the Ninely dynasty. Wandering swordsman? Jiang Chun said softly, understanding the origin of this martial arts technique at a glance. At this moment, 64 sword gleams came across the sky like a storm, covering the sky and earth, shaking the void until it was distorted. The sword gleams were sharp and cold, as if everything in this world would be shattered by these sword gleams. Thousand swords greeting. At this moment, Jiang Chun did not dare to be careless. He held the hilt of chasing heaven with both hands and stood in front of him. Then, he chanted a spell, and sword shadows condensed around him. In just an instant, tens of thousands of sword shadows appeared. With a wave of Jiang Chun's hand, the sword gleams overlapped and went straight for the 64 sword gleams. Boom! Boom! At the next moment, everyone only saw sword gleams dancing in the sky, sword auras wanton, but they could not see the figures of Jiang Chun and Wu Heng. And in the center of the sword gleams, Jiang Chun and Wu Heng had already exchanged blows. Wu Heng held 2 swords in his hands and attacked fiercely. His entire person was like an unsheathed sharp sword. Jiang Chun held chasing heaven with one hand, and black and white light appeared on his body, performing heavenly dance of brightness and darkness. At this moment, Jiang Chun held chasing heaven with his right hand, and his left hand spread open, holding 200 sharp swords at the same time. 3 swords danced in unison, sword gleams lingering around, like stars rotating. 2 swords in one. After the two fought fiercely for more than 10 breaths, Wu Heng's forehead broke out in cold sweat, obviously feeling the pressure. He shouted loudly, and the 2 swords in his hands merged, turning into a giant sword. Boom! At the next moment, Wu Heng slashed out with his sword, and a sword gleam like a mountain appeared. This sword gleam was heavy and huge. If not for the sword intent, outsiders would not even dare to believe that this was a sword gleam. As expected, who is the wandering swordsman to you? Jiang Chun stared and said, "Where did you learn this break-up sword technique?" "What break-up swordsmanship? Don't talk nonsense." Wu Heng's expression was strange as he scolded angrily. "Don't be distracted." "Umph." Still not admitting it. Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows. Under the dance of light and darkness, his figure was like a black and white light. He charged out and dodged the sword ray that was as heavy as a mountain. Immediately after, Jiang Chun's figure flashed and already appeared in front of Wu Heng. The heaven-chasing energy in his right hand slashed down, while the black and white swords in his left hand swept out horizontally. 2 of the 3 sword gleams overlapped, forming a cross. "Let's break up blades." At this moment, Wu Heng panicked. If he was hit, even if he didn't die, he would be severely injured. At that time, he would lose this battle. In a moment of desperation, Wu Heng's face flushed red as he let out a long howl. Is this the martial skill? All around, the group of people was stupefied, completely unable to understand the meaning of Wu Heng's long howl. Only Jiang Chun and Wu Heng understood that this was the wandering swordsman's ultimate skill, sword of separation. Back then, when Jiang Chun first met the wandering swordsman, he was amused by his martial skill. That guy was very strong, but for some reason, the name of his martial skill made people not know whether to laugh or cry. Moreover, the most important thing was that the wandering swordsman's sword of separation had to let out such a long howl in order to unleash its strongest power, buzz. At this moment, following Wu Heng's long howl, the huge sword split into two sharp swords. Immediately after, the two sharp swords split into four again. This cycle repeated until tens of thousands of sharp swords appeared. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. After the tens of thousands of sharp swords appeared, 6 sword gleams flashed like lightning and blocked Jiang Chen's attack. Wu Heng took the opportunity to escape and moved to the side. With a wave of his hand, the tens of thousands of sharp swords came crashing down on Jiang Chen. "Let's break up." Sword rain. Just as everyone was shocked by the scene in front of them, they heard that rather embarrassing long howl. With this long howl, the tens of thousands of sharp swords split into tens of thousands of sharp swords again. At this moment, Jiang Chen was drowned by the countless sharp swords. "Let's break up." B*TCH? Is it really breaking up, Sword Blade? Or B*TCH? This martial skill's name is so awkward. Why do you have to shout it out? Even Wu Taojiang covered his face. He couldn't believe that his son had actually learned such a powerful yet embarrassing martial skill. "Speak. Where is the wandering swordsman?" At this moment, the sword rain that filled the sky shattered. Jiang Chen's body was shining with divine light as he stood in the air, without a single wound on his body. This made Wu Heng slightly surprised, but he quickly calmed down. This was because he knew that Jiang Chen was very strong, and he did not expect that the previous move would be able to defeat Jiang Chen. "You are indeed worthy of being the sect leader of Quan Zun. Your strength is so strong that few people in the same generation can match you," Wu Heng exclaimed, not mentioning anything about the wandering swordsman. However, Jiang Chen really wanted to know where the wandering swordsman had gone. Back then, after Jiang Chen had become a god, logically speaking, with the wandering swordsman's strength and cultivation, he should have become a god within 100 years. However, Jiang Chen had waited for the wandering swordsman for 3,000 years in the holy world of 9 heavens. But he had not ascended. Jiang Chen and the wandering swordsman were friends. So he had always wanted to know what had happened to the wandering swordsman. Was he dead? Or was there another reason? However, Wu Heng was unwilling to say, as if there was something that was hard to say. Moreover, Wu Heng did not attack anymore, but cupped his hands towards Jiang Chen and said with a smile, "Since it is a spar, there is no need to determine the winner. Today, I have seen your strength, and I am impressed," Wu Heng said. After saying that, Wu Heng ignored Jiang Chen and turned back to Wu Taojiang's side. "You can't beat him?" Wu Taojiang asked softly. "I am not confident," Wu Heng said truthfully. "In a battle of the same level, I only have a 50% chance of winning. Only 50%. Is that guy really so strong?" Wu Taojiang frowned and said, "The barren state, the Chuanzun sect. How could such a monster be born in such a remote place?" At this moment, Jiang Chen stared at Wu Heng and asked again, "Speak. Where is the wandering swordsman?" "I don't know." Wu Heng glared at Jiang Chen and said, "I don't know any wandering swordsman." After saying that, Wu Heng turned around and left on the spot. This made Jiang Chen explode with anger. He wanted to chase after him and ask what was going on, but he saw Wu Taojiang's gloomy and cold expression. As such, Jiang Chen could only smile awkwardly and said, "Since the fight is over, can I leave now?" "Get lost. Although I won't kill you today, you must leave the underworld state." Wu Taojiang shouted angrily. "Why do you care?" Jiang Chen said mockingly, "You don't dare to kill me anyway, so why should I listen to you?" "You!" Wu Taojiang's face darkened. He looked at the Grand Advisor beside him and asked, "You really can't kill him? At least not now." The Grand Advisor smiled bitterly and said, "Wait a little longer. We will know in a month." Chapter 402. Wu Taojiang was furious. The person who killed his son was right in front of him, but he could not kill him because of the calamity of providence. As for his 2 sons, one was not a match for Jiang Chen, while the other was arrogant and only fought with Jiang Chen at the same level. In the end, both of them could not do anything to Jiang Chen. At this moment, Wu Taojiang could only stare at Jiang Chen angrily. There was nothing he could do. As the monarch, it was impossible for him to disregard the Nine Li dynasty's fate and momentum for his own revenge. Then you will stay in the underworld region. 1 month later, if you are not the person who is going through the calamity of Nine Li dynasty, I will definitely kill you. At that time, no one can stop me. Wu Taojiang said coldly. He waved his hand and said, Imperial tutor, keep an eye on him. Yes. The imperial tutor nodded hurriedly. He did not dare to be careless, because he knew that in this 1 month, Jiang Chun could not leave his sight. Otherwise, if Jiang Chun was not the person who was going through the calamity of Providence, even Wu Taojiang would definitely kill Jiang Chun. At that time, if he could not find Jiang Chun, he, as the imperial tutor, would have to take the blame. All right, you can all leave now. Jiang Chun looked at Emperor Bai and the rest and said mockingly, You heard it too. The Nine Li dynasty emperor did not allow me to leave the underworld region. 1 month later, I will personally come to bring you back to Emperor Bai City. Emperor Bai raised his eyebrows. At that time, let's see what excuses you can use to escape from the marriage. Escape from marriage? You make it sound like I agreed to marry Bai Fengyu. Jiang Qin muttered. Be careful. Qin Kong scholar patted Jiang Qin's shoulder and said, If there is any trouble, you can send me a message. In the end, everyone left, leaving only Jiang Chun and the imperial tutor. Mu Xinglong and Mu Linchen also left. The ninth princess also left with Wu Taojiang. At this moment, the reincarnation peak was a little quiet. Old man, my life is related to the fate of the Nine Li dynasties. Jiang Chun looked at the imperial advisor and said, Really? Not necessarily. The imperial preceptor had a strange look on his face as he said, I can only deduce that there is such a person, but I don't know who it is. So, the Nine Li dynasty doesn't dare to kill me now? Jiang Chun asked with a smile. There was a sly look in his eyes. The imperial tutor naturally sensed it. His expression froze as he said, Don't mess around. Why would I do that? Jiang Chun whispered, I'm just bored and want to take a walk around the palace. After saying that, Jiang Chun got up and flew toward the palace. The imperial advisor frowned and waved his hand, forming a seal in an attempt to imprison Jiang Chun. As long as they imprisoned Jiang Chun, they would know the result after a month. This method was also the safest. However, as soon as the imperial preceptor formed his hand seal, the Azure Sky Scholar suddenly appeared. He shattered the hand seal with a palm strike and stared coldly at the imperial preceptor. He said, I still haven't left, yet you want to attack him? Confucian scholar, you misunderstand. I'm just worried that he'll cause trouble. The imperial advisor's expression tensed. He was naturally nervous facing the blue sky Confucian scholar who could contend with Wu Taojiang. Don't touch him, the blue sky Confucian scholar said coldly. If he loses a single hair, the Blue Sky clan will go to war with the Nine Li dynasty at all costs. The imperial advisor naturally felt disdainful when he heard that. The Blue Sky clan was strong, but the Nine Li dynasty unified the underworld continent. How could a mere clan contend with the entire underworld continent? However, the Blue Sky Confucian scholar's next sentence made the imperial advisor's heart twist. When the time comes, the Billow Academy will also participate in the war. The Blue Sky Confucian scholar raised his brows. It's difficult for a single clan to contend with the Nine Li dynasty. However, if they're forced into a corner, which side do you think the Billow Academy will stand on? The imperial advisor only reacted when he heard that. The Blue Sky Confucian scholar was not only the Blue Sky clan's great ancestor, but also the Grand Elder of the Billow Academy. As for the Billowing Wave Academy, it was the number 2 academy. Since its establishment, it had taught many experts. The Billow Academy was indebted to those powerhouses. When the Billow Academy took action, most of those powerhouses from the Billow Academy would definitely come to help in the war. When the time came, the war would not only be a battle between the Blue Sky clan, the Billow Academy, and the Nine Li dynasty. That war would probably involve many sects and forces. As long as he leaves my sight, I naturally won't touch him. Don't worry, great ancestor. The imperial advisor's expression changed, and he said with a smile, as the Ninely Dynasty's imperial advisor, "I won't bully a child like him." "That better be the case," the blue sky Confucian scholar said softly. Then his figure flashed and disappeared. At that moment, Jiang Chen looked at the imperial advisor with a playful expression and said, "Bring me to the palace for a walk." "Sure." The imperial advisor nodded. Anyway, as long as Jiang Chen did not leave his sight, he could go anywhere. Moreover, there were many powerhouses in the palace. What could Jiang Chen, a lower heaven realm kid, do? If not, he would find someone of the same generation to spar with Jiang Chen to pass the time. When a month was up, it would be fine. Then, under the imperial advisor's lead, Jiang Chen swaggered into the palace. When Wu Taojiang, who was in the palace, found out that Jiang Chen had returned, he was so angry that his eyebrows twitched and his whole body trembled. Even his face had turned the color of pig liver. "This kid!" Wu Taojiang's expression was ugly. He said to a guard beside him, "Since he's so free, let him do something." Do what?" The guard was puzzled. "Isn't he very strong? Isn't he very good at fighting? Then let's find someone to fight with him. As long as we don't kill him, everything will be easy," Wu Taojiang said in a deep voice. After saying that, Wu Taojiang's eyes suddenly lit up and said, "This is my Ninely Dynasty's great tribulation of providence. It has nothing to do with others. My Ninely Dynasty can't kill him, but others, that's right. The emperor is wise." All the ministers in the imperial court also came to a realization. The Ninely Dynasty did not take action, but it did not mean that others could not. There were so many sects and forces in the Nether State. They could just find someone to kill Jiang Chen. At that time, if the person was not killed by the Ninely Dynasty, then the Ninely Dynasty's providence would naturally be affected. However, Wu Taojiang also knew that if he sent those with high seniority and cultivation, it would definitely anger the Green Sky Confucian scholar, Emperor Bai, and the others. Then, he could only send people who were about the same age as Jiang Chen. At that time, even if Jiang Chen was killed, the Green Sky Confucian scholar would not blame it on the Ninely Dynasty. "Let Wu Heng meet Jiang Chen again," Wu Taojiang said. "Tell Wu Heng that he is not to suppress his cultivation." "Yes, Your Majesty." The guard nodded and left in a hurry. At that moment, after Jiang Chen entered the palace, he went directly to the Yangxin Palace. Just as Jiang Chen expected, Mu Xinglong and the 9th princess were waiting for him there. "Master, why don't you come to the Mu clan?" Mu Xinglong said. "The Mu clan is very safe." "Not for now." Jiang Chen shook his head and asked, "Since ancient times, there has been a rumor that in the Nether State, there is an ancient road that leads directly to the 9 heavens divine world. Do you know where it is?" Chapter 403. "That's just a legend," Mu Xinglong said. "What about you?" Jiang Chen looked at the 9th princess with sparkling eyes and said, "You should know about it, right?" The 9th princess's expression froze for a moment, but she recovered quickly and said with a smile, "That path is not passable." "Oh, 9, you know about it?" Mu Xinglong was stunned. Even Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment. He asked casually and did not expect the 9th princess to know about that path. "I know about it. Brother Wu Heng knows about it too." The 9th princess ran her fingers through her hair and said nonchalantly, "Many people know about that path, but they also know that it was not passable a long time ago." "Wu Heng knows about it too?" Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed, and he thought of the wandering swordsman again. Wu Heng, path to heaven, breakup technique. So, after connecting all of this together, Jiang Chen naturally had an idea. Could it be that the wandering swordsman was in the path to heaven? Jiang Chen naturally knew how powerful the wandering swordsman was. There was a battle where Jiang Chen only defeated the wandering swordsman by half a move. Then, why had such a powerful person not ascended for more than 3,000 years? There must be a reason for this. Jiang Chen and the wandering swordsman were close friends, and they were as close as brothers. Now that Jiang Chen had returned to the godless mainland, he naturally had to find out the reason. If the wandering swordsman was killed by someone, Jiang Chen naturally had to take revenge. A long time ago, the path to heaven was occupied by some kind of living creature. After that, the path to heaven was sealed. The ninth princess said, "No one knows what happened after that." "Where is Wu Heng?" Jiangchen asked. "You're looking for me?" At that moment, Wu Heng entered Yangxin Palace with a smile and said, "What's the matter? Where did your breakup technique come from? Did you get it from the path to heaven?" Jiangchen asked. "I don't want to talk about this." Wu Heng lowered his voice and said, "If you want to know, why don't you go to the path to heaven and take a look yourself?" Jiang Chun had the same idea, but the ninth princess hurriedly said, "You can't go there. It was a danger zone. Death is certain." "That's not necessarily true. Didn't I come out alive?" Wu Heng said softly. "But it was indeed quite dangerous inside." "Where is the path to heaven?" Jiangchen asked solemnly. "I want to find him." "Find who? Wandering swordsman?" Mustar Wolf frowned and said, "Why are you looking for him? That was an expert from thousands of years ago. Now he should have ascended to the ninth heaven divine realm." However, Jiangchen knew very well that the wandering swordsman had not ascended at all. "I'll take you there," Wu Heng said, "but if you die inside, you can't blame me." Wu Heng added, "To be honest, I really don't know where the wandering swordsman is. I don't even know who the wandering swordsman is, and I've never seen him before. It's just that my breakup technique was indeed obtained from the path to heaven." Jiangchen nodded when he heard that. He had made up his mind and said, "Lead the way." "Master, you really can't go." The ninth princess's eyes revealed a trace of panic, as if she was worried about something. However, no one could stop Jiangchen from doing what he had decided to do. Soon, under Wu Heng's lead, the few of them used a day to set off from the palace and arrived at the western border of the nether region. This place was barren, and not a single blade of grass grew. Black smoke rose everywhere, as if it had been burned by some kind of raging flame. Demonic fire? Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed as he stared at the ground under his feet. He felt a terrifying demonic aura. This demonic aura was not the aura of a demonic cultivator, but the aura of the real devil race. Legend has it that a great devil once appeared here. After it was killed, its blood spilled on the ground, causing this place to be corroded by demonic fire and demonic blood. Not a single blade of grass grew. Wu Heng said, "We can't stay here for long. Otherwise, we'll be corroded by the demonic aura." "The devil race is still in the godless continent?" Jiangchen secretly said. Back then, the devil race had a great war with the various major races. After they were defeated in the end, they were expelled from the godless continent. Legend has it that the devil race was expelled to the other end of the godless continent, separated by an endless sea. Logically speaking, it was impossible for the devil race to appear on the godless continent. There shouldn't be any more devils. The great devil that appeared here should be the last one. Wu Heng said, "Ever since this great devil fell, the devil race has not appeared on the godless continent." As he said, Wu Heng continued forward all the way until he reached the depths of this barren land. When he arrived in front of an ancient well, he stopped. Under the ancient well, there's a bronze door. Behind the bronze door is the path to heaven. Wu Heng said, "I'm not going in. Last time I almost died inside. I'll go in myself." Jiang Chun said softly, but in his heart, he thought that since Wu Heng could come out alive the last time, he, Jiang Chun, could naturally do it too. Thinking, Jiang Chun leaped out and jumped into the ancient well. Sigh. The ninth princess stood outside the ancient well and let out a long sigh. A hint of complexity flashed across her eyes. Mu Xinglong was puzzled. Looking at the ninth princess, he asked, "What's wrong?" "Nothing," the ninth princess said softly. "If it were you and you saw another version of yourself, what would you do?" "How is that possible?" Mu Xinglong shook his head and said, "There's only me in the world. Just like these flowers, although they look similar, they're actually different." "I mean, what would you do?" the ninth princess said in a deep voice. Then, Mu Xinglong was stunned and did not know what to say. It had never crossed his mind that there was another version of himself in this world. Even Wu Heng was confused. He stared blankly at the ninth princess and asked, "Ninth sister, what are you trying to say?" The ninth princess heard and shook her head with a bitter smile. She did not say anything else. At that moment, after Jiang Chun jumped into the ancient well, he descended all the way. After half an hour, he reached the bottom of the ancient well. The bottom of the ancient well was dark and damp. It was also filled with skeletons. It was filled with a rotten aura. In a corner at the bottom, the skeletons piled up into a small mountain. There were a few skeletons that were emitting divine light and divine light. Those were the skeletons of deities. How can there be deities in the godless mainland? Jiang Chun was shocked. He only knew that deities were unable to enter the godless mainland. With doubts in his heart, Jiang Chun observed the bottom of the well. He saw that behind the pile of skeletons, there was a green radiance that was twinkling slightly. He walked closer and pushed the pile of skeletons aside. Jiang Chun saw a bronze door that was taller than a person. On the bronze door, the word Tongtian was engraved. "This is the entrance to the Tongtian Road," Jiang Chun said in a low voice. He put his palm on the bronze door. It didn't take him much effort to push it open. Chapter 404. The moment the bronze door opened, an ancient and desolate aura rushed out, and there was also a rotten aura, as if to corrode the soul, surrounding Jiang Chun. In front, there was a fog, and the surrounding scenery could not be seen clearly. He only knew that this road to the ninth heaven divine world was only 10 feet wide. Jiang Chun focused his eyes, and his pupils turned into the sun and moon, wanting to see the scenery behind the fog. However, this fog was quite special. Even though Jiang Chun used the eye of sun and moon to observe it, he could only see things 10 yards away from him. Looking carefully, there were a few skeletons 10 meters away, emitting divine light. Those were the skeletons of deities. After taking a few steps forward, Jiang Chun saw a few more skeletons of deities. This made Jiang Chun's heart tighten, and he was even more puzzled. Where did the skeletons of deities here come from? Could it be that there were deities who had come to the godless continent and wanted to use this road to return to the ninth heaven divine world? But why did they all die here? And outside the bronze door, so many skeletons of deities. What was going on? Someone's here? Continuing forward after about 100 meters, Jiang Chun's pupils suddenly shrank, and he saw a figure 10 meters ahead, sitting cross-legged with his back facing Jiang Chun. His body was emitting divine light, and there was a divine ring surrounding him. This was a Lord God. However, when Jiang Chun walked in front of this person, he found that this Lord God had actually died. His body was cracked, his soul was shattered, and his divine power had long dissipated. However, his eyes were open, and his gaze was locked in front of him, as if he was looking at something. Jiang Chun became more and more nervous, feeling that this road to heaven was too strange. Even a Lord God had died here. One must know that above the Lord God was the Divine King. As a Lord God, he had experienced thousands of disasters, and under normal circumstances, it was very difficult for him to die. Most importantly, he was still in the godless continent. On the godless continent, was there anyone who could kill a Lord God? If there was really such a person, then his cultivation was unimaginably high. Are there words? Just as Jiang Chun was about to continue forward, he saw a few words carved in God's blood on the ground in front of the god. The road has been cut off. What's ahead? Looking at these words, Jiang Chun couldn't help but frown and ponder. In the eyes of the world, the end of the road to heaven was the divine world of the nine heavens. But what was with these words? Could it be that the end of this road to heaven was not the nine heavens' divine realm? The road is cut off. The path to the heavens has been cut off. Jiang Chun muttered softly. He stood in place and pondered for a moment before continuing forward. Along the way, Jiang Chun did not encounter any danger. After advancing for 1,000 meters, at this moment, Jiang Chun felt that an extremely dense demonic aura had appeared in front of him. Gusts of sinister wind whistled past, as though 100 ghosts were blocking the path ahead. This is A few breaths later, when Jiang Chun advanced another 10 meters, his expression turned serious. Without caring whether there was danger ahead or not, he rushed out rapidly, until rushing out 100 meters. When Jiang Chun arrived at a place with resplendent divine light, a hint of sadness flashed across his eyes. Because in this divine light, there was a man carrying 3 sharp swords on his back. He was leaning on a broken giant sword. Even though he was dead, he was still standing. His gaze was looking into the distance, as if he was looking at something, more like waiting for something. And this person was Jiang Chen's former best friend, the Wandering Swordsman. The Wandering Swordsman had never mentioned his name to Jiang Chun. The world only knew the Wandering Swordsman, these 4 words. And now, the powerhouse who could compete with Jiang Chun back then had died here. Most importantly, Jiang Chun could sense that the Wandering Swordsman's cultivation had reached Lord God before he died. Why did you become a Lord God, but not ascend to the 9 heavens divine world? Jiang Chun frowned. A hint of sadness flashed across his eyes, and sighed. What exactly did you experience here? Wu Hung pays his respects to you, swordsman. Under the Wandering Swordsman's feet, there was a line of modern words, signed by Wu Hung. Then, it was understandable why Wu Hung knew the Wandering Swordsman's breakup technique. There are no more footprints. After sighing a few times, Jiang Chun calmed his emotions and looked forward. Along the way, he could see rows of footprints on the road. But after arriving here, there were no footprints on the road behind the Wandering Swordsman. Could it be that the Wandering Swordsman was the one who walked the furthest on the road to heaven? After this, no one could reach here. However, Jiang Chun became more and more puzzled. Even a Lord God could only reach here. So how did he, a small heaven realm cultivator, reach here? Could it be that the dangers that were once hidden on this road to heaven had already been eliminated? The road ahead, should I take it? Jiang Chun said softly. Maybe I should go and take a look. Thinking, Jiang Chun calmed his heart and focused, and began to carefully continue forward. Along the way, Jiang Chun did not see any more corpses. Even the fiendish energy that he sensed previously had disappeared. Ahead seemed to be a land of death and silence. There's no road? After half an incense stick's time, Jiang Chun did not know how far he had advanced either, until he saw the road ahead collapse. In front of him, an abyss appeared, with terrifying fiendish energy rushing out. And at the edge of this abyss, Jiang Chun saw several corpses. These few corpses did not have divine light on their bodies, but on the top of the skull of the corpses, there was a very obscure imprint. Jiang Chun's expression was solemn, raging waves surging in his heart, only because Jiang Chun recognized these imprints. These were divine king imprints. Only people who became divine kings would have this imprint appear on the top of their skulls. Even divine kings died here? Jiang Chun was alarmed. Carefully counting, there were a total of 6 divine kings here. 1 divine king per era. This was a kind of order and rule in the present era, and could not be broken. Then, for 6 divine kings to appear here all at once, it indicated that these divine kings were from ancient times. The era back then could give birth to many divine kings. Of course, this was not what Jiang Chun was concerned about. What he was concerned about was why these 6 god kings had died here. Looking carefully, they overlooked the bottom of the abyss. Before dying, their expressions were filled with horror and helplessness. It was as if there was something that even divine kings feared in this abyss. The road ahead is gone. Several breaths later, Jiang Chun looked ahead, only to see that the other end of that abyss was chaos. The road ahead seemed to have really been cut off. To be more precise, it was smashed to pieces, turned into nothingness and chaos. Then, what in the world happened here in the past? At the end of the road, there's only fear and destruction. Just as Jiang Chun was alarmed, a long sigh suddenly came from below the abyss. Immediately after, an incomplete soul rose up from below the abyss, like a cloud of white mist floating in front of Jiang Chun. Chapter 405. This was an incomplete soul without memories, only the last bit of instinct from when he was alive. He floated past Jiang Chun and floated towards the other side of the abyss. Jiang Chun stood on the spot and lowered his head to look at the abyss. He really wanted to go down and see what was at the bottom of the abyss. However, Jiang Chun knew that this abyss was not something that ordinary people could touch. Even godly kings would probably find it difficult to enter the abyss. Jiang Chun looked at the abyss, wanting to understand the truth. However, there was a layer of fog at the bottom of the abyss that blocked his vision. Even the sun-moon eye could not see through it. Finally, Jiang Chun let out a long sigh and turned around to return. After all, the path ahead was already cut off, and there was an unknown danger here. Jiang Chun did not dare to stay here for long. If he really encountered something dangerous, he would not be able to deal with it with his current strength. After all, even godly kings died here. He was just a low-level heaven realm cultivator. Coming here was equivalent to courting death. Fortunately, Jiang Chun did not encounter any danger along the way. After half an incense stick's time, Jiang Chun walked out of the path to heaven and returned to the bottom of the ancient well. However, the moment he stepped out of the bronze door, a fluctuation actually came from the path to heaven behind him. This fluctuation was very weak, but it had an indescribable feeling towards Jiang Chun. It was as though he was family. What's going on? Jiang Chun frowned. After hesitating for a moment at the bronze door, he turned around again and stepped into the path to heaven again. Along the way, he still did not encounter any danger. When he returned to the abyss again, Jiang Chun's pupils suddenly constricted. That was because a man had appeared above the abyss at some point in time. This man had his back facing Jiang Chun. His golden hair danced, and his snow-white robes were stained with pitch-black blood. "You're finally back." At this moment, the golden-haired man had his back facing Jiang Chun and said softly. His voice was filled with the vicissitudes of life and an ancient aura, yet it also carried a kind of invincible spirit. He stood above the abyss like a tall mountain, suppressing the abyss. "Who are you?" Jiang Chun stared at the man and felt a sense of familiarity. However, Jiang Chun was sure that he had never seen this man before. Furthermore, there was no sign of life on this man. Was this a dead person? "The 9 cycles of reincarnation is finally here," the golden-haired man said softly. Then he turned to face Jiang Chun. In an instant, Jiang Chun's expression changed and his eyes widened. It was because he couldn't believe that the blond man in front of him looked exactly the same as him. "Are you dead or alive? Who is it?" Jiang Chun's eyes narrowed as he stared at the man, his heart pounding. This was because if they looked exactly the same, it would be fine. However, Jiang Chun could also feel that this man's soul was actually the same as his. How is this possible? The same person, the same soul? What was going on? "I am you," the golden-haired man whispered. "I've been waiting for you." "You're me?" "Impossible." Jiang Chun shook his head and said in a deep voice, "There are only similar flowers. There are no similar people. Not only am I waiting for you, the others are also waiting for you." The golden-haired man continued, "There are a total of 8 people, including you 9. 9? What do you mean?" Jiang Chun was puzzled, completely unable to understand what the golden-haired man was saying. What 9 cycles of reincarnation? What I am you? What 9 people? What was going on with all of this? Of course, it was also at this moment that Jiang Chun realized that he should be hiding many secrets. However, even he didn't know this secret. 9 cycles of reincarnation, all things return to one. The golden-haired man said, "You don't need to understand this now. One day, when you truly awaken, you will know. At that time, whether it is the dusk of the gods or the dawn of 100 ghosts is unknown." At this point, the golden-haired man paused for a moment and said, "That battle, I want to see you." It's impossible for him to come back. Suddenly, a furious roar came from the abyss. Immediately after, a pitch-black figure appeared beside the golden-haired man like a shadow. This person's appearance could not be seen clearly, and it was even unknown what race he was. However, his body was filled with demonic chi. How can a person who has fallen into reincarnation return? His physical body has changed, his soul has changed, he is long gone. The pitch-black figure's voice was very ear-piercing, like two pieces of steel rubbing against each other. Moreover, as he spoke, black chains appeared on his body and wrapped around the golden-haired man's body. Then, the two of them slowly fell into the abyss. It's impossible for you to see the light of day again. More than 10 breaths later, a cold voice came from the bottom of the abyss. Then there was silence. There was no sound at all. Jiang Chun stood on the spot with a solemn expression. His brows were tightly knitted, and there were many doubts in his heart, but he did not understand. He knew that there might be a problem with his previous life. After all, Jiang Chun was not stupid. Could it be that when I was a divine king, there was another reincarnation? Jiang Chun thought, reincarnation 9 revolutions. Could it be that I reincarnated 9 times? But Jiang Chun did not believe it either. One had to know, back then, if not for the moon deity's help, igniting the myriad transformation heavenly lamp with her life, Jiang Chun would not have been able to enter the cycle of reincarnation and be reborn. Being able to be reborn once or twice, Jiang Chun could still accept it. But being reborn 9 times, no one would believe it. Moreover, Jiang Chun did not have any impression of the memories of his previous lives. Then, where in the world was the problem? After thinking for a long time, Jiang Chun still did not have any clues and could only leave this place. When he came up from the ancient well, the 9th princess looked at Jiang Chun with a strange expression, looking like she was making a prophecy. Wu Heng, on the other hand, had a look of surprise and said, "You can still come out alive? There's no danger inside." Jiang Chun said, "Could it be that when you went in the past, you encountered danger? You didn't encounter any danger inside?" Wu Heng was stunned and said, "Impossible. Could it be that you didn't encounter those strange creatures?" Strange creatures? Jiang Chun frowned. After thinking for a moment, he shook his head and said, "I saw a few corpses, but I didn't see any special creatures." It was impossible for Jiang Chun to tell Wu Heng that he had run into someone like him in there. It was also impossible to tell Wu Heng that he also met a person whose entire body was wrapped in demonic energy. And Jiang Chun also knew that the strange creatures that Wu Heng mentioned should not be those corpses, but should have another spirit. "You didn't see anything inside?" The 9th princess asked, her expression very calm. But in the depths of her pupils, a trace of unusual light flickered. "I didn't see anything," Jiang Chun said. "I only saw the corpse of the wandering swordsman." With that said, Jiang Chun did not say anything else and said to the Tomb Star Wolf, "Let's go back." Chapter 406. Jiang Chun had been silent ever since he came back from the ancient well. His mind was in a mess and his thoughts were in a mess. He did not know what to say. Moreover, he had nothing to say to Mu Xinglong and the rest. After returning to Yangxin Palace, Jiang Chun was upset and did not have the mood to cultivate. After letting Mu Xinglong and Wu Heng leave, he left the 9th princess alone. "Speak." Sitting cross-legged in the pavilion, Jiang Chun stared at the 9th princess with a flicker in his eyes. "Say what?" The 9th princess blinked her eyes with a puzzled look. However, in reality, both Jiang Chun and the 9th princess knew what to say. However, it was up to the 9th princess whether to say it or not. "Say what you should say," Jiang Chun said in a low voice. "Tell me everything you know." "I can't say." The 9th princess's expression suddenly turned serious as she said, "Everyone is different. Some people can safely get through some things when they encounter them. However, some people will die." "I can't even say it?" Jiang Chun frowned and thought that it could not be so serious, right? She could not even say it. Could it be that it was a forbidden sight? However, so what if it was a forbidden sight? Reincarnation and rebirth was a forbidden sight. Jiang Chun's reincarnation and rebirth was a forbidden sight. The 9th princess, on the other hand, was a person who illegally reincarnated. It was a forbidden sight among forbidden sights. What was there that couldn't be said when two forbidden-level characters met each other? I can only tell you one thing. The ninth princess thought for a while and said softly, I know that you must have met him in the path to heaven. The blonde one? Jiang Qin's eyes narrowed and said, Is he and I the same person? Yes. The ninth princess nodded without thinking and said, There are similar flowers in the world, but not similar people. But sometimes accidents will happen. Similar people, Jiang Chen whispered as a complicated look flashed through his eyes. The same person? How could this be? This Jiang Chen simply couldn't figure it out. In fact, no matter who it was, they wouldn't be able to figure it out. It was because this exceeded common sense, and it was impossible for it to exist. However, in this fantasy world, there were some things that were just so fantastical. However, these things needed to be guessed, analyzed, and investigated. It was as if there was a fog in front of him. He could have walked out with a single step, but he realized that even after walking an endless path, the fog was still in front of him. Including you, there are 8 in total. The ninth princess said, You are the ninth, and also the last hope. Jiang Qin's eyes lit up when he heard that. He stared at the ninth princess and asked, What do you know? I know everything. The ninth princess said, But I really can't say. As she spoke, the ninth princess suddenly changed the topic. She pointed above her head and said, Someone is watching us. As soon as she said that, Jiang Qin's expression turned serious. He released his divine consciousness and rushed up to the clouds. However, he didn't find anyone. No one, Jiang Qin said in a low voice. Are you lying to me? Some living beings have surpassed the heavens and escaped the cycle of reincarnation. They watch over all living beings in the world from the unseen world, the ninth princess said. They may know anything about the forbidden ruins. When that time comes, both you and I will die. As she spoke, the ninth princess seemed to think that Jiang Chen might not understand. After thinking for a while, her eyes lit up and she said, I'll explain it to you like this. You should know that the great empress has been born, right? The ninth princess said. Without waiting for Jiang Chen to speak, the ninth princess continued. After the great empress was born, she disappeared directly. Why is that? Why? Jiang Chen's thoughts were in a mess. His mind was in a mess. That's because the great empress herself is a forbidden remnant. She herself understands that if she were to come into being and not hide herself, and if those living beings were to find out about it, they would definitely attack and kill her, said the ninth princess. And you and I are forbidden ruins in the end. The ninth princess said, Therefore, it's best not to tell anyone or anything about the forbidden ruins. Especially when it's about you, the ninth princess said seriously. Your forbidden traces far surpass everything else. Huh, as if I'm very powerful. Jiang Chen pursed his lips and sighed. No matter how powerful you are, you were still attacked to death by 36 lords back then. Then do you know how powerful you were in the past? The ninth princess asked. Jiang Chen was in a mess when he heard this. He looked at the ninth princess in a daze and said, Me in the past? Me as Tian, Qin Divine King? No, even longer than that. The ninth princess said. Then, she hurriedly shook her head and said, Let's not talk about this. I can only tell you that you were very powerful in the past. So powerful that heaven and earth changed color. So powerful that those who transcended the heavens and escaped the cycle of reincarnation were extremely fearful of you. So powerful? Then what was my name in that life? Jiang Chen asked. However, the ninth princess shook her head and said, I can't say any more. Boom! As soon as she said that, there was a thunder in the sky, but there was no tribulation cloud. It was as if it was a warning from the unseen world. This made the ninth princess' expression change drastically. Cold sweat broke out on her forehead, and she said, I can't say any more. The heavens are already warning me. Then I'll ask you one last question, Jiang Chen said in a low voice. Just one last question. The ninth princess frowned when she heard that. As if she couldn't persuade Jiang Chen, she couldn't help but smile bitterly and say, Ask away. This is my ninth life? I've lived 8 lives? Jiang Chen asked. Yes. The ninth princess nodded. 9 cycles of reincarnation, all changes returned to one. Then, A trace of fear flashed in the ninth princess' eyes. She hurriedly concealed her aura. At the same time, she took out an ancient green lamp and placed it in front of her. The green lamp burned with a faint light. There was also an obscure aura that filled the air as if it could cover everything. At this moment, the ninth princess heaved a sigh of relief and said, "If I continue, I'm really going to die. It's not easy for me to sneak through reincarnation. Don't force me." Jiangchen couldn't help but sigh when he heard that. After asking so many questions, he didn't get any useful information. However, Jiangchen also figured out that this was his ninth life. He had lived 8 lives before. However, Jiangchen only remembered the memories of his previous life as Divine King Tianchen. He didn't know about the other lives. Will memories disappear after reincarnation? Jiangchen asked. This question isn't considered a taboo. The ninth princess said, memories won't disappear after reincarnation. The stronger the person, the more memories they won't lose. But Jiangchen frowned. I only remember the memories of my previous life, because someone secretly interfered with your reincarnation. The ninth princess said, you're too strong. If no one secretly interfered and sealed your memories and wiped away your aura, I'm afraid you would have died in your second life. Chapter 407. Jiangchen had lived 8 lives, and now it was his 9th life. According to the ninth princess, Jiangchen was once very strong, so strong that heaven and earth submitted to him. Jiangchen was also puzzled. Since he was so strong, why did he need to reincarnate? Was he dead? Or was it broken? You should have been to the ancient heavenly ruins, right? The ninth princess asked. Yes. Jiangchen nodded, secretly wondering how the ninth princess knew everything. Before coming to the Nether Province, Jiangchen had never seen the ninth princess, and the ninth princess knew everything about Jiangchen's experience. What was going on? Could it be that after Jiangchen reincarnated, the ninth princess already knew and had always been paying attention to Jiangchen? Then, why did the ninth princess pay attention to Jiangchen? Moreover, the ninth princess previously acknowledged Jiangchen as her master. Was it only for the sacred imperial scripture? Did you get that drop of true blood? The ninth princess asked. Got it? Jiangchen nodded. The drop of true blood that the ninth princess mentioned was naturally the drop of blood of the myriad transformations Divine King. And that drop of blood was given to him by the mysterious old man in the ruins. It was said that that drop of true blood contained the inheritance of the myriad transformations Divine King. However, after Jiangchen obtained that drop of true blood, he did not feel that it was very useful. Therefore, all along, Jiangchen did not pay much attention to that drop of blood. Now, hearing the ninth princess's words, Jiangchen could not help but realize that that drop of true blood might be related to his previous lives. You've already obtained the key to unlocking the memory seal. The ninth princess said, the rest is up to you. That drop of true blood can unlock the memories of my previous lives? Jiangchen said with focused eyes. The ninth princess nodded. Subsequently, the ninth princess told Jiangchen that before becoming a god, it was best not to touch that drop of true blood. According to the ninth princess's words, unlocking the memories of his previous lives under the circumstances where his strength was insufficient was equivalent to exposing his identity, and it would attract a fatal disaster. That kind of fatal disaster was not something that anyone could help. Got it? Jiangchen nodded and said. Following that, Jiangchen was silent and pondering. His mind was in a mess. Fortunately, after half an incense stick's worth of time, he stabilized his state of mind and then began cultivating. However, before he cultivated to an incense stick's worth of time, Wu Heng came again. Spar? Wu Heng directly provoked the moment he arrived and said, this time, I won't suppress my cultivation and fight with you. The moment these words came out, Jiangchen's face turned black, and he said crossly, what? Want to bully me? How so? I just want to take a look at your strength, that's all. Wu Heng's old face turned red. It really had to be said, Wu Heng, coming this time, was on Wu Taojiang's orders to come and beat up Jiang Chun. Of course, it was best if he could cripple Jiang Chun. Previously, Wu Heng made Jiang Chun go to the path of Heavenspan. In reality, he did not have good intentions either. It was to let Jiang Chun go and die. But who could have thought that Jiang Chun came out safe and sound? Now, Jiang Chun came back. It was naturally impossible for Wu Heng to let it go like this. However, Jiang Chun was also very clear in his heart that Wu Heng's strength was extremely strong. If the other party did not suppress his cultivation, Jiang Chun was indeed not the other party's match. Since that was the case, why did Jiang Chun agree to it? However, this was Underworld after all, Ninely Palace. If Wu Heng attacked Jiang Chun forcefully, Jiang Chun could not do anything either. Wu Heng, it just so happens that my hands are itching recently. Why don't I play with you? Right then, Mu Xinglong walked in with a gloomy face and murderous intent surging in his eyes. He stared at Wu Heng and pointed at Jiang Chun, saying, "You want to bully my master? Have you asked for my permission? You're really my good disciple." Jiang Chun looked gratified. He walked over and patted Mu Xinglong's shoulder, asking, "Can you beat him?" "I've never lost," Mu Xinglong said confidently. When these words came out, it surprised Jiang Chun. That was because Jiang Chun knew about Mu Xinglong's strength. Before Jiang Chun recast Mu Xinglong's cultivation level, Mu Xinglong's actual combat strength was not strong. If that was the case, how could Mu Xinglong win against Wu Heng? "Mu Xinglong, don't you mess around." Wu Heng's face was ghastly. When he looked at Mu Xinglong, there was a tinge of helplessness in his eyes. "If it was in the past, I definitely wouldn't stop you. But now he's my master." Mu Xinglong's attitude was firm. He said, "Of course, if you suppress your cultivation level, I won't interfere." Wu Heng's face grew even more ghastly. If he suppressed his cultivation level and fought with Jiang Chun, what chance did he have of winning? At most, it would be a 50-50 chance. Of course, that was Wu Heng's own opinion. If they really fought, it was uncertain whether it would be a 50-50 chance. All right. Wu Heng was silent for a while. Suddenly, there was a glimmer in his eyes, and he said, "I haven't fought with you for a long time. Today, I'll fight with you, the third prince of Mu clan." "Bring it on," Mu Xinglong said mockingly. Just as he finished speaking, Mu Xinglong's body shook, and the power of spiritual thunder's sacred body exploded. A calamity cloud appeared above his head. If you have the guts, don't use the power of spiritual thunder's sacred body. Wu Heng's face was dark, and he was so angry that his body was trembling. Why? Why can't I use my own power?" Mu Xinglong said mockingly. "What's going on?" Jiang Chun was curious. He looked at the ninth princess and asked, "With Wu Heng's power, he should be stronger than Mu Xinglong." "Don't mention it." The ninth princess had a strange look on her face and said, "One is spiritual thunder sacred body, and the other is weak water sacred body." Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. He had not expected that to be the case. Everything in the world had its own way of reinforcing and countering each other. Sacred bodies were the same. Weak water sacred body was naturally countered by spiritual thunder sacred body. Under such circumstances, unless Wu Heng's cultivation was higher than Mu Xinglong's by 2 realms, Wu Heng had no chance of winning against Mu Xinglong. "Forget it. Let's not fight." Wu Heng's face was dark, and he said, "It's boring. You're always like this." "Then why aren't you scramming?" Mu Xinglong said coldly. "You come to my heart-nurturing palace every other day. Don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. Heart-nurturing palace is in 9 Li Imperial Palace. It belongs to my Wu clan." Wu Heng said coldly, "This is my Wu clan's territory. How dare you ask me to scram?" "Why wouldn't I dare?" Mu Xinglong's eyes flashed with killing intent, and he said, "Do you think that I want to stay here? If it wasn't for Wu Taojiang, that old man, I wouldn't be able to stay here obediently. Why don't you talk to your father and ask him to allow me to leave this place? Let's see if he dares." Wu Heng immediately shut his mouth. He did not dare to talk to Wu Taojiang about this. One should know that Wu Taojiang had spent a lot of effort and cost to make Mu Xinglong stay in heart-nurturing palace. Now, would Wu Taojiang be willing to let Mu Xinglong leave? Chapter 408. Mu Xinglong was the third prince of the Mu clan and Mu Linshan's most valued son. His status was extraordinary. Moreover, he was one of the two royal families in the Nine Li dynasty. If Mu Xinglong went out to cause trouble or even kill someone, ordinary people could not do anything to him. Therefore, Wu Taojiang paid a huge price to keep Mu Xinglong in the heart-nurturing palace to prevent him from causing trouble. Now that Mu Xinglong had asked him to leave the heart-nurturing palace, he was letting the tiger go back to the mountain. Wu Heng did not dare to ask Wu Taojiang to ask Mu Xinglong to leave the heart-nurturing palace. Now that Mu Xinglong was there, Wu Heng could not do anything to Jiang Chen. There are many geniuses in the underworld continent. I'll find some people to spar with you. Wu Heng raised his eyebrows and left. Anytime, Jiang Chen said mockingly, don't find some useless people. I'm tired. Enough for you, Wu Heng said softly. After Wu Heng left, Jiang Chen, Mu Xinglong, and the ninth princess stayed in the heart-nurturing palace. The following days were peaceful. The three of them cultivated on their own, and no one came to disturb them. 5 days later, that day, Wu Heng came again, and he brought along a young man in a black robe. The young man was slightly skinny, and his forehead bone was prominent. He had a pair of eagle eyes, and he gave off a cold vibe. Jiang Chen did not know him, but when Mu Xinglong saw him, his expression changed, and he shouted, "Tu Mu, what are you doing here? I've heard of Jiang Chen's name, and I'm here to pay you a visit." Tu Mu cupped his fists at Mu Xinglong and said, "How about it? Do you want to spar with me?" When Jiang Chen heard that, he stood up and said with a smile, "Come on, Buzz." As soon as he finished speaking, Tu Mu waved his hand, and runes appeared around him. In the blink of an eye, the runes turned into runes. Then a huge array was formed. The air distorted, and the void trembled. Beneath the array, blazing flames began to appear. Furthermore, within the raging flames, there was even frost condensing. Formation of fire and ice? Jiang Chen chuckled and said, "I'm tired of this kind of formation. What a joke. This formation can't be set up by ordinary people." Tu Mu said disdainfully, "Don't worry. Since it's a spar, I won't take your life. However, if I accidentally cripple you, then don't blame me. You can only blame yourself for being inferior." "Oh, you still want to cripple me?" Jiang Chen chuckled. With a stomp of his foot, runes appeared around him. He didn't even need to make any hand seals. With just a kick, he had set up a similar fire and ice array. At this moment, Tu Mu's expression froze because he noticed that the blazing flames and frost within the fire-ice formation set up by Jiang Chen were a few times stronger than his own. Moreover, in Jiang Chen's fire and ice array, he saw the fire dragon and ice dragon roaring. "Destroy!" At this moment, Jiang Chen shouted softly. The fire and ice within the formation burst out. The ice dragon and fire dragon roared at each other. Under the counterforce, they directly shattered Tu Mu's formation. Furthermore, the momentum of these fiery ice did not decrease. The ice dragon and the fire dragon combined and formed a blue and red pillar of light that shot straight towards Tu Mu. Reverse! Although Tu Mu was shocked, he did not panic. He instantly made a hand seal, and another formation appeared. This formation was filled with black and white light. It was as if yin and yang qi were rolling within the formation. When the fire and ice dragon rushed in front of Tu Mu, the black and white light within the formation suddenly expanded. Like a huge net, it blocked the fire and ice dragon. Furthermore, after blocking the fire and ice dragon, the huge net suddenly shook and actually bounced the fire and ice dragon back. This scene made Jiang Chen slightly surprised, but his expression remained calm. As the leader of Chuanzuan's sect, he was proficient in every profession and was even revered. It was only a tactical formation, but it was certainly nothing for Jiang Chen. You even know about the reverse formation. Your formation skills are not bad, Jiangchen said with a smile. However, with a raise of his hand, he set up another 2 fire and ice formations. In the next moment, there was a series of dragon roars, and several fire and ice dragons rushed out. Like a fierce dragon crossing the river, several fire and ice dragons carried a violent aura and once again bombarded the huge net formed by the reverse formation. Boom! At this moment, the huge net began to shake violently. The black and white light reversed, and the power of yin and yang appeared. However, no matter how powerful one's techniques were, Jiang Chen's continuous attack of several fire and ice dragons was enough to break all techniques. Boom! After a few breaths, the huge net collapsed and the reverse formation shattered. Several ice dragons directly bombarded Tu Mu's body. Poof! Tu Mu's face instantly turned pale. Blood spurted out of his mouth, and his body flew backward. If not for Wu Heng taking action in time to neutralize part of the attack, that attack just now would probably be enough to take Tu Mu's life. Jiang Chun, it was originally a spar. You actually attacked so viciously. Are you trying to kill the young lord of Cloud Scour Mountain? Wu Heng shouted angrily. When Jiang Chun heard that, he blinked his eyes, but the corners of his mouth revealed a hint of a meaningful smile. Wu Heng's words were not only condemning Jiang Chun, it was also telling Jiang Chun Tu Mu's identity. Then, as the young lord of Cloud Scour Mountain, Tu Mu nearly died in the hands of Jiang Chun. With Tu Mu's identity, would he be willing to let it go? Is Cloud Scour Mountain very powerful? Jiang Chun said mockingly. My disciple is the Mu clan's third prince. There are deity realm powerhouses in my Cloud Scour Mountain. There's even a Deva third blight grand elder. Tu Mu spat out a mouthful of blood, forcefully stabilizing his body, and said coldly, You wanted to kill me just now. No, that was just a slip of the hand. Jiang Chun smiled. In other words, I didn't expect you to be so weak. If I knew you were so weak, I would definitely have been gentler. When Tu Mu heard that, his face turned ashen, and he glared at Jiang Chun, saying, Don't think that I won't dare to do anything to you just because Mu Xinglong is protecting you. Disciple, this person seems to be looking down on you. Jiang Chun ignored Tu Mu and turned to look at Mu Xinglong, asking, How does the Mu clan's third prince compare to the young lord of Cloud Scour Mountain? Ask your father to come over. Mu Xinglong's temper flared up, and he glared at Tu Mu, saying contemptuously, Are you qualified to talk to me? If you weren't brought here by Wu Heng, you wouldn't even be qualified to see me. Mu Xinglong, Tu Mu is my best friend. Wu Heng said with a dark expression. You can choose not to give Tu Mu face, but you should at least give me some face, right? Do you want my leg? Mu Xinglong did not give Wu Heng any face, saying, If you continue to bicker with me, I'll ask Wu Taojiang to come over. At that instant, Tu Mu and Wu Heng were at their wits' end. They were not willing to provoke Mu Xinglong, a murderous god. Besides, even if Tu Mu and Wu Heng asked their fathers to come, what could they do? You guys have fathers, but Mu Xinglong doesn't. Mu Xinglong's father, Mu Linchen, was the patriarch of the Mu clan. Chapter 409. All right, it's my fault this time. Jiang Chen waved his hand and said, It's my fault. I didn't see that you were so weak. I'll be more careful next time and go easy on you. You. Tu Mu was enraged. However, he could not do anything to Jiang Chun. After all, he was no match for Jiang Chun. In the end, Tu Mu could not say a word. He left with Wu Heng with a sullen face and vomited blood. Watching them leave, Jiang Chun couldn't help but smile bitterly. He said, I'm afraid it won't end so easily. What can he do? Mu Xinglong said coldly, At most, I won't stay in Yangxin Palace Hall. Don't. Jiang Chun shook his head and said, If you don't stay in Yangxin Palace Hall, Wu Taojiang will be furious. Mu Xinglong opened his mouth with a strange expression. Then he said weakly, Actually, I'm not that murderous. Jiang Chun was stunned when he heard that. He turned to look at the ninth princess and said, He said that he's not murderous. Do you believe him? What do you think? The ninth princess said in annoyance. She rolled her eyes and glared at Tomb Star Wolf from the corner of her eye. Mu Xinglong also blushed, which was a rare sight. He smiled awkwardly and sat down to cultivate. However, before he could sit down, a calamity cloud appeared in the sky. Zhang Chen looked up, and his face darkened. He poked Mu Xinglong's shoulder and said, "My good disciple, it's time for you to go." "What?" Mu Xinglong was stunned. He looked up at the calamity cloud and said, "This isn't my heaven's calamity." "It's not mine either," the ninth princess said. Zhang Chen looked serious and said, "This should be my heaven's calamity when I break through to heaven state. I didn't expect it to come so late." "What has it got to do with me?" Mu Xinglong was stunned. "What has your heaven's calamity got to do with me? What do you mean by asking me to go? What do you mean?" "For you, Master didn't hesitate to suffer the backlash of the forbidden technique. Do you think Master treats you well?" Zhang Chun said seriously. "Sure." Tomb Star Wolf nodded. "Then, Master has done so much for you. Shouldn't you repay Master?" Zhang Chun asked. "Then, how do I repay you?" Tomb Star Wolf was confused. He still did not understand what Zhang Chun meant. At this moment, Zhang Chun was also speechless. "I've already said it so clearly. Why don't you understand?" Seeing that the heavenly tribulation was about to descend, Zhang Chun simply stopped pretending and said directly, "As a spiritual thunder sacred body, you can control the heavenly tribulation, so I plan to let you dissolve this heavenly tribulation." "Oh!" Tomb Star Wolf nodded his head. To him, this was a piece of cake. However, when he raised his head and saw that the tribulation cloud had turned into a 9-colored lotus flower, Mu Xinglong's face fell. Damn it, 9-colored annihilation calamity? This was a heavenly tribulation that only a king sage could attract. Previously, when Tomb Star Wolf became a king sage, he went through the same heavenly tribulation. At that time, even though Tomb Star Wolf had a spiritual thunder sacred body, he was struck to the brink of death. "Now, you want me to go through the 9-colored annihilation calamity? Are you kidding me? Listen to Master. This is to train you." Zhang Chun said earnestly and patted Tomb Star Wolf's shoulder. "I have high hopes for you. Master, I've made some mistakes in my cultivation recently. I really can't help you." Tomb Star Wolf stood up and wanted to run away. However, how could Zhang Chun let Mu Star Wolf go? He grasped Mu Star Wolf's shoulder and kicked him into the air. At the same time, Zhang Chun used the art of destruction to hide his aura. "Master, you're tricking me." At that moment, Tomb Star Wolf roared. However, he was under the tribulation cloud, and the heavenly tribulation had locked onto him. At that moment, Tomb Star Wolf had no choice but to help Zhang Chun go through the heavenly tribulation. "You're so evil. You purposely made him your disciple. In actual fact, you're looking for a lightning rod, right?" The ninth princess teased. "Cough, cough. I can see through it, but I won't say it out loud." Zhang Chun blushed and looked at Tomb Star Wolf, who was covered in dust from the lightning strikes. He said, "This is a form of training for him. Maybe one day, his spiritual thunder's sacred body will advance." When he said that, the ninth princess was stunned and said, "That's really possible. One should know that there were many sacred bodies in this world that could advance. For example, Bai Fenyu's great moon sacred body could advance to an ultimate moon sacred body if there was a chance. Once a sacred body advanced, the power that it brought was unimaginable. However, it was too difficult to advance to a sacred body. Oh, so miserable. After half an hour, the 9-color annihilation tribulation disappeared. Zhang Chun looked at Tomb Star Wolf, who was covered in blood and twitching on the ground. He covered his eyes and comforted him. "Disciple, it's okay. You'll get used to it in the future." "In the future? Get used to it?" Tomb Star Wolf was dumbfounded. He felt that he had fallen into a trap. Bow to Zhang Chun. "From now on, the heavenly tribulation will be by your side." The ninth princess teased. "Brother, you'll have to admit defeat in the future." Is it too late to regret?" Tomb Star Wolf smiled bitterly. With a black face, he lay on the ground and recuperated silently. However, before half an hour had passed, another tribulation cloud appeared in the sky. At that moment, the ninth princess stared and said, "This is not mine. Then the ninth princess looked at Tomb Star Wolf and said, "It's yours, right?" "Impossible. I haven't broken through. How can I attract the heavenly tribulation?" Tomb Star Wolf shook his head. After saying that, Tomb Star Wolf seemed to have realized something. Without caring about his injuries, he hurriedly got up and ran. However, before he could run a few steps, Jiang Qin's leisurely voice was heard. "Disciple, do you want to become as powerful as me?" "Air." Tomb Star Wolf stopped in his tracks and said, "Yes." "Then what are you waiting for? I'll give you another heavenly tribulation to help you train yourself." Jiang Qin said seriously, "Master, how many heavenly tribulations do you have to go through when you break through to a new realm?" Tomb Star Wolf was about to cry. He had not recovered from his injuries, and he had to go through another heavenly tribulation. Wasn't the frequency a little too high? As a practitioner, you have to keep honing yourself and making breakthroughs. Jiang Qin said earnestly, "Don't worry. Just go." Of course, there was something that Jiang Qin did not say. "Even if you were struck to death, I can find a good place for you and bury you properly." "Master, then I'll go." Tomb Star Wolf trusted Jiang Qin very much. Despite his injuries, he charged up and disappeared into the heavenly tribulation cloud. However, not long after, the Tomb Star Wolf cursed, "F***CK. This is not a heavenly tribulation. It's a heavenly tribulation." "Ah, a heavenly tribulation?" Jiang Qin looked surprised. In reality, he already knew that this was not a heavenly tribulation, but a heavenly tribulation. "Master, do you often use forbidden skills?" the ninth princess asked. "Not often. Occasionally." Jiang Qin blushed and said, "Don't worry about that. Let him train himself." Chapter 410. The power of the heavenly punishment was naturally more powerful than the heaven's test. Moreover, the heavenly punishment lasted for a longer period of time and was more violent. At that moment, Jiang Qin and the ninth princess sat quietly and looked up at the sky from time to time with strange expressions. In the calamity cloud, the grave star wolf roared and screamed from time to time. There was even the blood of a sage dripping down. Obviously, the grave star wolf was seriously injured. "Aren't you worried about him?" the ninth princess asked. "If he can't even survive this, how can he fight with me in the future?" "He is not qualified to be my disciple," Jiang Qin said. "But if he dies, you will have one less lightning rod," the ninth princess teased. "Cough, cough. What lightning rod? He is my disciple, that's all." Jiang Qin blushed, and after a few coughs, he went silent. After more than 10 breaths had passed, Jiang Qin's expression suddenly froze, because he had sensed that the grave star wolf's life energy was weakening rapidly. That meant that the grave star wolf was dying. At that moment, Jiang Qin could no longer stay calm. After he got up, he dashed up like a giant bird with his wings spread. Boom! After a few breaths, Jiang Qin dashed into the calamity cloud. With a wave of his hand, he threw the grave star wolf out of the calamity cloud. Then, the power of heaven and earth in Jiang Qin's body exploded. The power of earth and the power of heaven combined. With a punch, the calamity cloud dispersed like a jade seal. "What the F***CK? The grave star wolf lay on the ground with his eyes wide open. He could not believe what he had just seen. The heavenly punishment that he had narrowly escaped with his life was shattered by Jiang Qin's punch. That was too much. Even the ninth princess was stunned. She did not expect Jiang Qin to be so powerful. However, when she thought of Jiang Qin's power in his previous life, the ninth princess understood. "You are still you. You still give people the feeling that you are invincible," the ninth princess thought to herself. At that moment, Jiang Qin returned with a calm expression. After he landed beside the grave star wolf, he raised his eyebrows and said in disdain, "Aren't you too weak?" "I'm weak?" The grave star wolf was anxious. With his power, there were few people in the same realm as him. He was not convinced that Jiang Qin was weak. However, as soon as the Tomb Star Wolf thought of Jiang Qin's strength, he lost his temper. He could only mutter, "Yeah, I'm weak. All right, hurry up and heal your injuries." Jiang Chun said angrily. How are you going to help me go through my heavenly ko in the future with such strength? What? The Tomb Star Wolf's ears were sharp. He panicked when he heard that. What? I've helped you transcend the heavenly tribulation and heavenly wrath once. Isn't that enough? You to heaven, to death, to come to death, to come to death. Do you really think I'm a lightning rod? Focus on your cultivation. Don't do useless things all day long. Jiang Chun said calmly, I'm training you. As you can see, this level of heaven's wrath is no threat to me. I'm sorry. I'm too weak. The Grave Star Wolf was about to cry. Why was his master so powerful? He was only at the lower level of heaven state, but he was so powerful. When he became a sage, he would be able to fight against a godly state expert. A sage could fight against a godly state. This was something that only happened in legends. The higher one's cultivation level was, the more obvious the difference between them would be. In fact, the difference between them would be difficult to overcome. Li Zibai from Jinwang Mountain is here to meet sect leader Quanzun. At that moment, a loud voice was heard from outside the hall of mental cultivation. Then, a handsome young man with a long sword rushed toward Jiang Chun like a shooting star. Jinwang Mountain? Jiang Chun blinked and thought of the founder of Jinwang Mountain, the Jinwang. Back then, Jiang Chun was about to become a true god. When he was about to become a true god, he met a young man. He gave him some pointers and taught him some martial arts and cultivation techniques. In the next 100 years, the Jinwang became famous. His strength shocked everyone, and he built Jinwang Mountain. Now, a disciple of Jinwang Mountain was here to visit him. This is what was going on. Was he here to spar with the master of the founder? Wu Heng asked you to come? Jiang Chun said softly. He waved his hand and said, I don't know how to control my strength. I advise you to go back. I've heard of sect leader Quanzun, Jiang Chun. It's rare to meet you today, so I'm here to spar with you. Li Zibai said seriously. Wu Heng didn't ask me to come. I wanted to come. Why? Jiang Chun asked. He was also curious. In this life, Jiang Chun did not have much interaction with Jinwang Mountain. Why was someone from Jinwang Mountain here? Looking for trouble? I heard that your swordsmanship is excellent. The cultivators of Jinwang Mountain are all sword cultivators, so I wanted to give it a try, Li Zibai said. Jiang Chun was amused when he said that. The swordsmanship of Jinwang Mountain was passed down by him. Jiang Chun. Now, a junior wanted to spar with him. An ancestor? Wasn't this bullying a noob? However, he was a young man. Since he was so interested, Jiang Chun naturally had to satisfy him. All right, let's spar then, Jiang Chun said. After getting up, he waved his hand, and the power of heaven and earth turned into a long sword. He did not use chasing heaven. This made Li Zibai's expression turn ugly. He said in a deep voice, I know you have chasing heaven, the weapon that divine King Tian Shin once used. Why don't you use it? Are you looking down on me? Jiang Chun smiled bitterly in his heart when he heard that. He thought to himself, if I use chasing heaven, you'll be gone with a single strike. Chasing heaven is broken. It can't be used, Jiang Chun said. No one will believe that excuse, right? The ninth princess curled her lips. How could a weapon used by divine King Tian Shin be broken just like that? Li Zibai naturally did not believe it either. I'll make you use chasing heaven, Li Zibai said in a deep voice. Sword intent erupted from his body, and swords of light spun around him. Then he brandished his sword. The radiance of the sword filled the sky. It turned into a sword formation and flew toward Jiang Chun. This sword array is quite like my cough. It has the demeanor of a sword king. Jiang Chun nearly let it slip. After hurriedly speaking, he waved his hand, and the sword trembled. A lotus flower bloomed on the sword beam. After the lotus flower bloomed, it turned into 9 flowers. After 9 flowers, it turned into 18 flowers. The 18 sword flowers flowed around Jiang Chun in a reverse direction. They looked like a garland, blocking all of the sword radiances falling from the sky. Following that, Jiang Chun swung his sword. The 18 sword flowers gathered and turned into a resplendent, and beautiful purplish gold flower. The purplish gold flower swayed in the air and slowly drifted towards Li Zibai. This speed was like an ordinary person walking. It could be said to be extremely slow. However, a terrifying pressure emerged from the purplish gold flower. It was the pressure of sword aura. Chapter 411. Swordflower Style? How do you know my Sword King Mountain's martial technique? Li Zibai exclaimed. He had sensed at the moment Jiang Chen made his move. Now, when he saw this purplish gold flower, he was even more certain that this was the sword flower style of Sword King Mountain. Why do you care? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and said, Take care of yourself first. If you can't take this move, you, as a disciple of Sword King Mountain, will lose face. I've been proficient in this move since I was 10 years old, Li Zibai said softly. The long sword in his hand made a sword flower, and then a similar purplish gold flower exploded. Boom! In an instant, the two sword flowers collided in the air. Colorful colors flashed, sword chi wantonly, and sword light lingered. However, after only 3 breaths, Li Zibai's sword flower shattered, and Jiang Chen's purplish gold flower, sword flower still existed. How is this possible? Li Zibai's expression changed, and he exclaimed in surprise. It was the same move, and Li Zibai's cultivation had reached the lower level of the Holy King, but he could not defeat Jiang Chen. Anyone would find this hard to accept. However, this was the truth. Under the suppression of cultivation, Li Zibai was no match for Jiang Chen in a head-on clash. Moreover, Jiang Chen's sword flower was unscathed. Its momentum did not decrease, and it even bloomed with divine light. The divine light gathered and turned into sword light. It was like a sun cast by a sharp sword, pressing down on Li Zibai. Across the 8 directions. At this moment, Li Zibai's expression became serious. The sharp sword in his hand swept out, and sword chi came from all directions, directly destroying Jiang Chen's sword flower. However, in the next moment, Li Zibai's expression became even more serious. This was because Jiang Chen had also swept out with his sword. The sword light came from all directions, destroying all 8 of Li Zibai's sword lights. Then, the 8 swords merged into one and transformed into a cold ray of light. In an instant, it was pressed against Li Zibai's forehead. At this moment, cold sweat broke out on Li Zibai's forehead. He knew that if Jiang Chen hadn't stopped, this sword strike would have taken his life. Why do you know the martial skills of the Sword King Mountain? Li Zibai said in a deep voice. His heart was filled with panic. He had heard of Jiang Chen's name and knew that once Jiang Chen started doing something, he wouldn't care about anything. There were even rumors that Jiang Chen was a ruthless person who killed without batting an eyelid. Therefore, he was a little scared. If Jiang Chen wanted to kill him, with his current strength, he definitely wouldn't be able to stop him. As expected of my master, to be able to defeat a Saint King with his strength at the lower heaven realm. Mu Xinglong exclaimed softly. He wondered when he could become as strong as Jiang Chen. If not for me back then, there wouldn't be the Sword King Mountain today. Jiang Chen thought to himself. Of course, he couldn't say this out loud. He looked at Li Zibai and said, This world is far more complicated and exciting than you think. After saying that, Jiang Chen asked, What's the cultivation of the strongest person in the Sword King Mountain now? Deva First Decay. Li Zibai said truthfully, not daring to mess around. After all, that cold ray of light was still pressed against his forehead. If he made Jiang Chen unhappy, who knew if Jiang Chen would kill him or not? How long have you been cultivating? Jiang Chen asked again. 736 years. Li Zibai said. When Jiang Chen heard that, a trace of disappointment flashed across his eyes. This was because the Sword King had only used 400 years to reach the Deva's 5th decay. And now, after the Sword King Mountain had declined. In Jiang Chen's eyes, cultivating for 736 years was enough to cultivate to become a Lord God, even a divine king. 9 secrets of the Sword King. How many secrets has he cultivated to? Jiang Chen asked again. The fifth secret, Li Zibai said, his heart full of fear and even more puzzlement. Just because, listening to Jiang Chen's words, he seemed to be too familiar with the Sword King Mountain. The fifth secret? Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment, his face full of black lines. Back then, Jiang Chen casually created the 9 secrets of the Sword King and imparted it to the Sword King. At that time, the Sword King comprehended it thoroughly in 100 years and entered the realm of Deva fifth decay. And now, this Sword King Mountain's strongest person actually only cultivated to the 5th secret. This, big brother, you're so weak. Go back. Let your Sword King Mountain's strongest person come over. Jiang Chen said, also sighing endlessly in his heart. The Sword King Mountain was inextricably linked to him. Now that the Sword King was no longer around, Jiang Chen was reborn. He naturally had to take care of the Sword King. Furthermore, if Jiang Chen were to return to the 9th Heaven Divine Realm in the future, he might even need the Sword King's help. After all, the current Sword King was doing pretty well in the 9th Heaven Divine Realm. He was a sword god and a master god. All right, Li Zibai nodded, frowned, and asked softly, then this sword, disperse. Jiang Chen shouted softly, and the sword light that was pressed against Li Zibai's forehead dissipated. Then he waved his hand and said, let's go. Li Zibai did not say much, turned around and left. Master, are you that familiar with the Sword King Mountain? Mu Xinglong came over and asked curiously, why did you ask the ancestor of the Sword King Mountain to come over? Of course it's to give him some pointers. Jiang Chen said snappily. It could be considered fate. Fate? Mu Xinglong was puzzled, but he also knew that Jiang Chen was unwilling to explain in detail, so he did not continue to ask. Half a day later, Jiang Chen sat cross-legged in the pavilion to cultivate. Suddenly, he felt a slight change in the weather above the palace. A few brilliant suns suddenly appeared in the clear sky. Upon closer inspection, they were balls of extremely pure sword chi. At the same time, a white-haired old man flew over on his sword and landed directly in the Yangxin Palace Hall. And this person was the strongest person in the Sword King Mountain, Zhang Mushuan. Zhang Mushuan, what do you mean by barging into my palace without informing me? Before Zhang Mushuan could walk to Jiang Chen's side, Wu Taojiang appeared. After all, a Heaven's Blight expert suddenly came to the palace. Wu Taojiang did not dare to be careless. I'm here to see someone, Zhang Mushuan said, staring at Jiang Chen, and said, little friend, why did you ask me to come over? Nothing much. Jiang Chen smiled and threw a silk book that he had prepared long ago in front of Zhang Mushuan and said, take it. What? Zhang Mushuan frowned. After opening the silk book and taking a few glances, his eyes were immediately filled with horror. This was because this silk book recorded the cultivation method, understanding, and comprehension of the 9 secrets of the Sword King. Zhang Mushuan only glanced at it briefly, but he already had a feeling in his heart. He was even more certain that he would be able to cultivate the 6th art in a few days. Where did you get this? Zhang Mushuan said in a deep voice. Did someone secretly pass on the unique skill of the Sword King Mountain? Secretly? Jiang Chen curled his lips and said with a look of disdain, can this thing be secretly passed on? You have only cultivated to the 5th secret, but the things recorded in this silk book can help you cultivate to the 9th secret. Zhang Mushuan heard this and felt that it was reasonable. However, how could an outsider understand the 9 secrets of the Sword King? Chapter 412. Zhang Mushuan was puzzled, but he was a reasonable person. He cupped his hands at Jiang Chen and said, although I don't know how you got it, I still have to thank you. After saying that, Zhang Mushuan thought for a moment and said seriously, just take it that my Sword King Mountain owes you a favor. If you need anything in the future, as long as it is within the power of my Sword King Mountain, everything is negotiable. Okay, Jiang Chen nodded. Then, Zhang Mushuan did not say goodbye to Wu Taojiang. He rose on his sword and was about to leave. However, before he was 100 meters away, an old man in black descended from the sky. When he arrived, he did not say anything. He held a black sickle in his hand and directly slashed at Jiang Chun, one of the Yin-Yang emissaries of the martial pavilion. Emissary Yin. Wu Taojiang exclaimed softly, but did not make a move. This was because he could not wait for Jiang Chun to die. I say, I haven't left yet. However, before the sickle could hit Jiang Chun, Zhang Mushuan dashed over. He put his index finger and middle finger together and flicked the sickle gently. The sickle bounced back. Even the nether emissary was forced to take 3 steps back. Zhang Mushuan. The emissary Yin was furious. He glared at Zhang Mushuan and said, "What does it have to do with you? I owe him a favor. That's all," Zhang Mushuan said indifferently. The emissary Yin was extremely powerful. He was the Yin-Yang emissary of the martial pavilion. His cultivation had also reached Heaven's Blight, which was the same as Zhang Mushuan. However, if they really fought, it was hard to say who would win or lose. Moreover, there was only one emissary Yin this time. If he was seriously injured, the consequences would be very serious. After all, the martial pavilion had too many enemies on the godless continent. Someone might know that the emissary Yin was injured and would attack him when he was alone. Therefore, the emissary Yin did not want to fight with Zhang Mushuan unless it was necessary. Wu Taojiang, Jiang Chun killed your son. You can't do it yourself, but the martial pavilion can do it for you. The emissary Yin said in a deep voice, "If you stop Zhang Mushuan, I'll kill Jiang Chun for you." The moment these words came out, Wu Taojiang was naturally moved. Borrowing the hands of others to kill Jiang Chun was the best option. That way, they would not have to worry about affecting the nation's fate. However, Jiang Chun had Emperor Bai, Qin Kong Confucian scholar, and the rest behind him. If Wu Taojiang were to interfere, Emperor Bai and Qin Kong tribe would not let the matter rest. At that time, the two forces, along with the Billow Academy, would wage war against the 9 Li dynasty. Wu Taojiang would have a headache. Since I've seen it, I naturally have to intervene. Wu Taojiang said in a low voice, "This is the imperial palace. No violence is allowed." As soon as these words were spoken, emissary Yin instantly understood. As long as he left the palace, Wu Taojiang would be able to make his move. "Brat, you better not leave the 9 Li imperial palace," the sinister emissary said coldly. He glared at Zhang Mushuan and said, "Jianwang Mountain, very good." With that, the emissary of hell turned into a cloud of black mist and disappeared into the air. Zhang Mushuan smiled at Jiang Chun and said, "This is the underworld region. The martial pavilion would not dare to make a move against my Jianwang Mountain." "I know." Jiang Chun nodded and said, "Thank you very much. Take care of yourself. I can only protect you this once," Zhang Mushuan said. After all, he did not have much interaction with Jiang Chun. It was already considered good that he could help him this time. Jiang Chun also understood this logic and did not hope that Zhang Mushuan would help him all the time. Moreover, Jiang Chun was at ease. As long as he did not leave the 9 Li imperial palace, emissary of hell would not dare to cause trouble for him. After all, if something happened to Jiang Chun in the 9 Li imperial palace, Wu Taojiang would have to bear the responsibility. Wu Taojiang did not want to bear the responsibility. "Get out of the imperial palace. This is an order." Wu Taojiang could not wait for Jiang Chun to die. At this moment, he directly ordered to expel Jiang Chun from the imperial palace. With regards to Wu Taojiang's order, Jiang Chun naturally did not want to obey. However, this was Wu Taojiang's territory after all, and he was the emperor. Jiang Chun had to obey even if he did not want to. He could not stay in the imperial palace, right? Jiang Chun was not so thick-skinned. "Father, he is my master." The 9th princess pouted and said, "If master is not in the imperial palace, I want to leave too." When these words came out, Wu Taojiang's face instantly fell. He doted on the 9th princess very much and was deeply afraid that the 9th princess would be hurt. Usually, there were God-state experts protecting the 9th princess. Now, if the 9th princess left the imperial palace with Jiang Chun, with the ninth princess character, she would definitely not let Wu Taojiang find her. Then if something happened to the ninth princess, let's go then, master, and I will return to the Mu clan. Mu Xinglong said, do you dare? When Wu Taojiang heard this, his face turned even uglier. In order to let Mu Xinglong stay in Yangxin Palace Hall, he had paid a huge price. Now, for one Jiangchun, Wu Taojiang did not want to let Mu Xinglong leave Yangxin Palace Hall. Moreover, if Jiangchun left, Mu Xinglong left, the ninth princess would definitely leave too. At that time, 3 of them would leave at once. As long as you are happy. Wu Taojiang was silent for a while before he said this with a sullen face and turned to leave. He was really going to explode from anger. It's easy to dodge an open spear, but hard to dodge a hidden arrow. Better be careful, Jiang Chun said softly. Although the emissary of hell had left, who knew if he would come again? If there was a sneak attack and Jiang Chun died, Wu Taojiang would have to bear the responsibility. What was the emissary of hell's business? In the end, he would just leave. At that time, White Emperor City and Qin Kong tribe could only vent their anger at Nine Li Dynasty. They could not really put the blame on Wu Taojiang. Then what should we do? Mu Xinglong frowned. Yangxin Palace Hall is located in a secluded area in the palace. There are no godly state experts guarding nearby. Why do I need the 2 of you? Jiangchun rolled his eyes and said angrily, where are your subordinates? Your bodyguards? Your personal guards? Mu Xinglong's eyes lit up and he said, I understand now. Then Mu Xinglong took out a token and crushed it. It turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the void. In a short time, an elder at Heaven's Blight 3rd stage flew over and landed in front of Mu Xinglong. Young master, what are you doing? The elder smiled bitterly and said, did something happen? Nothing. I've been bored recently and wanted to find someone to chat with. Stay by my side for this period of time. Mu Xinglong said, that's it? Can't you just find someone else? The old man looked depressed. No, I want to find you. Mu Xinglong stared at him and said, can't I? As a Heaven's Blight 3rd stage expert, he should be superior. How could he be intimidated by a king sage? However, Mu Xinglong was the 3rd prince of Mu clan. His father was Mu Lin Chun. His status was there. The elder had to listen to Mu Xinglong. Jur, why are you looking for me? At that moment, a young man in a blue robe entered Yangxin Palace Hall. It was obvious that this person had also received the 9th princess's message. Chapter 413. I've missed you. The 9th princess blinked her beautiful eyes and said, recently, there are some things that I don't understand about cultivation. I want to ask your master to teach me. When the young man in blue heard that, he immediately agreed without hesitation and said, Jur, I can give you whatever you want. Obviously, the young man in blue was in love with the 9th princess. After he said that, a voice transmission was transmitted from 1,000 miles away. After a dozen breaths of time, a burly man directly landed in Yangxin Palace. Little girl, have you thought it through and decided to marry my disciple? The burly man said. He patted the young man in blue and said, my Ziyuan is very good. My dear Jiu, you finally took the initiative to look for me. At that moment, another young man walked in. His eyes were filled with strong admiration. He ignored everyone present and jogged all the way to the 9th princess. When this person appeared, everyone present, except for Jiang Chun and the 9th princess, instantly turned gloomy. There was even fear in their eyes. This was because this person was the prince of the previous dynasty of the underworld continent, the young master of the Heavenly Flow tribe, Tianlu Xingyue. A long time ago, the underworld continent had a dynasty called the Heavenly Flow dynasty. Because it had declined, it was eventually replaced by the Nine Li dynasty. However, although the Heavenly Flow dynasty had declined, its foundation was still there. Moreover, it had many affiliated sects and forces. There were even rumors that the Heavenly Flow dynasty had given all its power to rule the underworld continent to the Nine Li dynasty because it was tired of it. Although this rumor might not be true, It was enough to show how powerful the Heavenly Flow tribe was. Moreover, the current Heavenly Flow tribe still had relations with the Ninely dynasty. Although they did not have any great enmity, they did not treat them well. Most importantly, on the day Tianlu Xingyue was born, the Heavenly Flow tribe had announced that they would take back the rule of the underworld continent. So, what did this mean? It could only mean that the Heavenly Flow tribe valued Tianlu Xingyue very much. They thought that Tianlu Xingyue was enough to take back the glory that belonged to the Heavenly Flow tribe. Now that Tianlu Xingyue had appeared, the atmosphere was a little tense. Aya, look at how nervous you are. I'm just here to see Jiao. Tianlu Xingyue smiled and said, "From now on, I will become the emperor, and Jiao will be the empress. We will all be a family in the future." How arrogant, Jiang Chun thought to himself. Before the two members of the royal family of the Ninely dynasty, he actually said that he wanted to be the emperor. This wasn't the intention of rebellion too obvious? However, Tombstar Wolf and the Ninth Princess didn't say anything. It seemed like the relationship between the Ninth Princess and Tianlu Xingyue wasn't normal. I didn't ask you to come here to listen to your nonsense. The Ninth Princess didn't give Tianlu Xingyue any face and said directly, "Call a few people here to protect my master." "Oh, your master? Isn't that?" Tianlu Xingyue was stunned. She frowned and thought for a long time. Then she said, "My wife's master is also my master?" "Pa!" As soon as she finished speaking, the Ninth Princess slapped Tianlu Xingyue on the forehead without hesitation. Of course, with Tianlu Xingyue's strength, he could dodge it. But he didn't dodge. Jiao, hitting is flirting and scolding is love. The harder you hit me, the more you like me. Tianlu Xingyue smiled and didn't care about the glaring palm print on her forehead. You can't be too serious. Picking up girls is like Tianlu Xingyue. Jiang Chun praised in his heart and secretly gave Tianlu Xingyue a thumbs up. Because in terms of picking up girls, Jiang Chun admired Tianlu Xingyue a lot. At least this guy was really shameless. "Master, what kind of expert do you need?" At this moment, Tianlu Xingyue didn't treat Jiang Chun as an outsider. This made the Ninth Princess's face as dark as ink. "Anything will do." Jiang Chun smiled and said, "A heaven's decay is enough." Hearing this, Tianlu Xingyue was stunned on the spot and didn't know what to say for a while. "Anything? Just randomly pick a heaven's decay? Why don't you be more casual?" "Let me think about it." After being stunned for a while, Tianlu Xingyue frowned and thought for a while, then said, "There is no heaven's decay." "Then forget it," Jiang Chun whispered. "If there is no one, then there is no one. Anyway, there is a big man here. He should be able to deal with the messenger." However, Tianlu Xingyue's next sentence made Jiang Chun quite confused. There are only two heavens decay in the family, but they are both in seclusion. There is only one heavens decay. Why don't we make do with it? Tianlu Xingyue said. As soon as these words came out, everyone present, including Jiang Chun, was dumbfounded and quite confused. What does heavens decay mean? It means standing at the top of the godless continent. Another step forward would be to transcend the tribulation and become a deity. There are not many people like this in the godless continent. In total, I'm afraid there are not even 10. Now, Tianlu Xingyue seemed to be afraid of Jiang Chun's dissatisfaction, so her tone was weak. Moreover, after saying that, she asked, "If it doesn't work, I'll let him suppress his realm and suppress the heaven's decay. What do you think? Is this the difference between a rich second generation and a poor child?" Jiang Chun muttered. "To casually take out a person with heaven's decay, this is too rich." That? Okay. What else can Jiang Chun say? Asking for the protection of a heaven's decay for free. Can this be refused? As soon as her voice fell, Tianlu Xingyue shouted to the sky, "Great-grandfather, come here." Boom! Immediately, a bolt of lightning appeared in the clear sky, and the void was split open. A bald old man with a wine gourd appeared here. He looked drunk. walking with floating steps, staggered in front of Tian Lu Xingyu, and said, "Little Yu, what's wrong? Do you want to drink with your great-grandfather?" "Drink? No, no, no. I want you to help me protect someone." Tian Lu Xingyu said with a black face. "Don't call me Little Yu. I'm a man." "Little Yu, what does this sound like? Protect a person? Is your alcohol tolerance good?" The old man said and asked the irrelevant question. "Does protecting a person have anything to do with alcohol tolerance?" "That? Master, my great-grandfather can help people, but you have to give him alcohol." Tian Lu Xingyu smiled bitterly and said, "You also know that he is already a heaven's decay. He doesn't have any needs in this world, but he likes to drink. If you can accompany him to be happy, then protecting you for a period of time is not a problem at all." When Jiang Chen heard this, his expression became strange. "Who doesn't know how to drink? But do I really have to drink? If I drink too much, the consequences will be very serious. So you are a kindred spirit. I also like to drink." At this moment, the burly man suddenly opened his mouth and took out an altar of aged wine from his spatial ring, and said, "This is a good wine that I brewed with heavenly materials and rare treasures. Why don't you have a drink with this ancestor today?" Chapter 414. I'm not trying to protect you. Why should I drink with you? Tian Lu Xingyue's great-grandfather squinted and said, "I'm only protecting him because he's drinking with me. Of course, if he's drinking with me, I can drink with you too. Damn it. I can find a 5 decay of heaven and man to protect me just by drinking. Why shouldn't I drink?" Jiang Chen sat down and said to the burly man and the bald old man, "In terms of cultivation, I'm not as good as the two of you. But in terms of alcohol tolerance, I'll never admit defeat." "Is that so?" The burly man stared at him and said, "When it comes to drinking, I'm facing the sea. I only know how to drink until I'm full. I don't know how to get drunk." The bald old man raised his eyebrows and waited for Jiang Chen and the burly man. Then he looked at Mu Xingyue, Tian Lu Xingyue, and the ninth princess and said, "Let's drink together. If you can make me happy, I'll agree to one of your conditions." Who wouldn't want to have the protection of a 5 decay of heaven and man by drinking wine once? Even the ninth princess and Mu Xingyue were tempted. Immediately, everyone sat down cross-legged in a circle, chatting and drinking. In terms of alcohol tolerance, everyone present was a cultivator. Naturally, they could hold their liquor well. At least, ordinary alcohol was like plain water to them. However, the burly man's alcohol was brewed with rare treasures. It could be said that it was specially made for cultivators. It was especially enjoyable to drink. After half an hour, Mu Xingyue was the first to give in. His tongue rolled, and he was drunk. He wanted to use his spiritual energy to force the alcohol out of his body. However, he realized that the alcohol was like a poison that went deep into his energy center and even his soul. In the end, Mu Xingyue rolled his eyes and fainted. "You're too lousy at drinking," the burly man said. He glanced at Jiang Chen and the ninth princess and said, "Are the two of you okay?" Hearing this, the ninth princess also jumped up and said, "My alcohol tolerance is not something you can compare to." When Jiang Chen heard this, he couldn't help but have a strange expression. The ninth princess is also drunk. Of course, Jiang Chen's alcohol tolerance was unquestionable. After all, he loved to drink. It was just that under normal circumstances, Jiang Chen did not drink. As for the reason, according to Jiang Chen, it was because of drinking. But in reality, it was hard to say. In the end, the few of them kept drinking until dawn. Jiang Chen finally couldn't take it anymore. After the alcohol got to his head, Jiang Chen had been restraining himself. He thought that these people should have drunk enough. However, even at noon, the burly man and the old man were still drinking. The others had already collapsed. Only Jiang Chen was still bitterly holding on. However, after drinking until noon, Jiang Chen couldn't take it anymore. He said to himself, "Something bad is going to happen." After a dozen breaths, Jiang Chen was drunk. He put his hand on the burly man's shoulder and said with his tongue curled, "Brother, follow me from now on. I'll take you to become a god." "Brother? Little brat, who are you calling brother?" The burly man glared at him and said drunkenly, "You're not young anymore, but you're quite arrogant." "What? You're not convinced, are you?" Jiang Chen's eyes reddened. He grabbed a wine jar on the ground and directly smashed it. At this moment, Jiang Chen didn't care who you were. Even if you were a god, he would dare to hit you. Seeing this, the old man at the side chuckled and said, "You drank too much and went crazy." "I'm going crazy? I'm still very sober," Jiang Chun shouted angrily. As he spoke, he also picked up a wine jar and threw it at the old man. "Kid, what are you doing?" The old man glared at him and said, "Do you want to die? Fight me one-on-one if you dare. Don't use your cultivation if you dare." Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and immediately stood up. His body swayed, and he squinted and said, "Come on, old man, F***ck. I'll beat you to death." The old man was also very stubborn. He immediately sealed his cultivation, rolled up his sleeves, and rushed toward Jiang Chun. On the side, the burly man was hit by Jiang Chun. Naturally, he was unwilling to give up. He also sealed his cultivation and punched at Jiang Chun. "I'm Tian Chun. Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Jiang Chun said confusedly. Like a scoundrel in the marketplace, he wrestled with the two men. After half an hour, the burly man was beaten black and blue. He hurriedly retreated and said, "I'm so tired. Wait for me to drink a mouthful of wine." Having said that, he picked up the wine jar and drank a few mouthfuls of wine. Then, he joined the battle again. After a few breaths, the old man was also tired from being beaten up by Jiang Chen. He pulled himself away and picked up the wine jar. After drinking a few mouthfuls, his eyes turned red and he said, "Little brat, today, I'll teach you how to behave." "I'm not afraid," Jiang Chun said with his eyes covered. He was so drunk that he could barely open his eyes. Just like that, the three of them wrestled with each other. After an unknown amount of time, the three of them fought and drank until all three of them fainted. He had been unconscious for 3 days. 3 days later, Jiang Chun and the rest woke up. When they saw the bruises on each other's faces, their expressions became strange. "Cough, cough. Guys, your faces." Mu Xinglong was dumbfounded and said, "Could it be that you were ambushed when you were drunk?" Hearing that, the burly man blushed and said, "I drank too much and fell." "Fell?" Mu Xinglong was shocked. As a cultivator with such a high cultivation, so what if he fell? It was impossible for there to be a bruise on his face. "Great-grandfather, you fell too?" Tian Lu Xing you looked at the bald old man with a puzzled expression and said, "Great-grandfather, with your cultivation, even if the sky fell, it wouldn't leave a bruise on you." "I didn't fall. I hit my head." The bald old man's face was also slightly red, and he was rather embarrassed. "Cough, cough. Don't ask. If you ask, you hit your head." Jiang Chen also hurriedly said. He felt his head hurt. Jiang Chen liked to drink, but under normal circumstances, he didn't drink because his alcohol tolerance was really bad. Once he drank too much, he would go crazy. But what Jiang Chen didn't expect was that the burly man and the bald old man's alcohol tolerance was similar to his. They were all the same. Now, the three of them couldn't possibly say that because they drank too much and had bad alcohol tolerance, the three of them started fighting. If that was the case, wouldn't it be too embarrassing? "Cough, cough. I drank happily, so I'll agree to one of your requests." At that moment, the bald old man hurriedly changed the topic and said to Jiang Chun, "Don't go overboard." When Jiang Chun heard that, he was immediately excited. After all, this old man was also a Heaven's Blight powerhouse. On this godless mainland, he could be said to be standing at the top. Now, Jiang Chun had to think carefully before making a request. After all, this was a rare opportunity. Chapter 415. Jiang Chen thought about it carefully and felt that he didn't need anything in the current situation. Anyway, the burly man was here. Even if the emissary of the netherworld came, he couldn't do anything to him. So, how should he raise this condition? Thinking about it, Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes and asked, "Can I keep it for now?" "Yes." The bald old man nodded and threw a token to him, saying, "Tell me when you've made up your mind." After that, the bald old man seemed to feel embarrassed. He covered the bruise on his face and hurried away. The burly man didn't say anything. He operated his spiritual power and removed the bruise on his face. Then he sat aside silently. At this moment, they looked at each other and didn't say anything. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Was it really a collision? Tian Lu Xingyue suddenly asked with a sneaky look. "Shut up." Jiang Chun glared at her and blushed. She really touched a sore spot. "Fine, I won't ask." Tian Lu Xingyue curled her lips and licked her lips. Then she looked at the ninth princess and said, "Jur, why don't we go for a walk? It's rare to see each other. Let's enjoy some alone time." "Get out," the ninth princess said coldly. "Either stay here quietly or get out of here." "Okay, I'll be quiet." Tian Lu Xingyue felt wronged. She touched her chin and thought to herself, "I'm the young master of the heavenly clan and the prince of the previous dynasty. How could I not be angry in front of the ninth princess?" In the current heavenly clan, Tian Lu Xingyue was the emperor. In the heavenly flow clan, his words were like an imperial decree. After half an hour, everyone was bored and sat down to meditate and cultivate. When Jiangchen saw Tian Lu Xingyue's body shining with starlight, his eyes narrowed slightly and a trace of horror appeared in his heart. The spiritual power in her body is like the rotation of the stars. She uses the power of the stars to cultivate. Is this the star technique? Jiang Chun thought to himself. After staring at Tian Lu Xingyue for a long time, he couldn't help but ask, "What cultivation method are you cultivating?" "The art of stars." Tian Lu Xingyue opened her eyes and said, "This is the technique of my Tian Lu clan. The whole underworld continent knows about it. It's not a secret." "The star art?" Jiang Chun narrowed his eyes and asked, "Is the ancestor of the heavenly clan called Tian Lu Xingchun?" "Yeah." Tian Lu Xingyue nodded and said, "It's not a secret." "Sure enough," Jiang Chun said softly. He smiled and said, "It's nothing. I was just asking." With that, Jiang Chun closed the screen and began to cultivate. However, in reality, Jiang Chen's heart was unable to calm down. Because Tian Lu Xingchun was now the master god of the ninth heaven divine world, titled Tian Xing. Back then, when Tian Lu Xingchun competed with Jiang Chun for the position of God King, he lost to Jiang Chun by one move. In the past, Jiang Chun was already invincible as an overgod. However, he didn't expect that there would be such a strong person in this world who only lost to him by one move. Moreover, Jiang Chun also knew that Tian Lu Xingchen's technique, the heavenly star art, was a technique from the ancient times. Tian Lu Xingchen once said that the heavenly star art was the #1 technique in the ancient times. Jiang Chun didn't care about it until one day. When he stepped into a relic in the ninth heaven divine world, he knew that what Tian Lu Xingchen said was true. The heavenly star art was the peerless technique of the Yuhua dynasty in the ancient times. Few people had heard of the Yuhua dynasty, but there was one person whom many people knew. That person was the Empress. The emperor of the Yuhua dynasty used to be the Empress. The Empress, Tian Lu Xingchun, the heavenly star art, Tian Lu clan. Jiang Chun thought about it. What secrets were hidden behind these things? Of course, if the heavenly star art was just that, Jiang Chun wouldn't care. However, Jiang Chun had seen an ancient bronze gate in the relic he had been in. That door, Jiang Chun couldn't open it even with the power of a divine king. In the end, after Jiang Chun's deduction, he found out that to open that bronze door, he had to use the heavenly star art. Back then, Jiang Chun went to find Tian Lu Xingchun, wanting him to use the heavenly star art to open that bronze door. However, Tian Lu Xingchun refused. He told Jiang Chun that he had been to that relic before and knew that only the heavenly star art could open it. But he didn't do that. Tian Lu Xingchun only told Jiang Chun that behind that bronze door, there was another world. And that world had been sealed. If that bronze door was opened, it was equivalent to opening the path between the two worlds. At that time, it would probably bring disaster to the ninth heaven divine world and even the godless continent, or even destruction. Jiang Chun. Just as Jiang Chun was thinking, a cold voice came from outside Yangxin Palace. Then, a young man wearing the robe of the martial pavilion walked over step by step. Are you here to die? Jiang Chun didn't have a good impression of the people of the martial pavilion. It could even be said that he would kill anyone he saw. Now, as soon as the young man arrived, the murderous intent in his eyes skyrocketed. It was obvious that this person was here to kill Jiang Chun. I'm here on the orders of the emissary of hell to take your life. The young man raised his eyebrows. Jiang Chun couldn't help but laugh when he heard that. He said, the emissary of hell is quite smart. He knows that with his identity and strength, if he attacks me, he will definitely attract the great ancestor and the others. Therefore, he sent you, someone with the same cultivation level as me, Jiang Chun said contemptuously. But are you qualified? Enough to kill you. The young man also looked contemptuous, but the murderous intent in his eyes grew stronger. After saying that, he reported his name and said, Baron State, Jiang family, Jiang Yintian. Jiang family? Ah, master, you're from the same family. Why would someone from the same family help the martial pavilion to kill you? At that moment, Mu Xinglong and the others were confused. They didn't know that the relationship between Jiang Chun and the Jiang family was like fire and water. One should know that in this life, Jiang Chun's parents died in the hands of the Jiang family's great elder and the others. The Jiang family's power had always been in the hands of the great elder's line. Therefore, they wanted to kill Jiang Chun and cut off the last bloodline of the Jiang family's direct line of descent. Only in this way could the great elder's faction truly control the Jiang family. By the way, the Jiang family is now under the martial pavilion and has become one of the 7 major families under the martial pavilion. We have been given the surname Jiang Wu, Jiang Yintian said. When he said that, there was a trace of arrogance on his face. Jiang Chen's face darkened when he heard that. He said coldly, You think it's good that your surname has been changed? Why don't you change your surname and acknowledge the martial pavilion as your father? What a joke. It's the dream of many families to become a subordinate family of the martial pavilion. Jiang Yintian said, Now, our Jiang family status in the Baron State has skyrocketed. Even the top 10 academies have to be wary of our Jiang family. Chapter 416. That's because of the martial pavilion, not the Jiang family. Jiang Chun said coldly, The Grand Elder is really scheming. After controlling the Jiang family, you plan to sell the Jiang family to the martial pavilion. You're really something. What does the Jiang family have to do with you? You're just an abandoned son of the Jiang family. Jiang Yintian said disdainfully. He curled his finger at Jiang Chun and then pointed at his feet. Kneel down, and I might spare your life. Ignorant, stupid, Jiang Chun said softly. Then, he stared at Mu Xinglong and said, What are you waiting for? Ah! Mu Xinglong was stunned. Then, he got up and rushed to Jiang Yintian. He slapped Jiang Yintian and roared, Who are you asking to kneel down? Mu Star Wolf was a sacred king, and his body had been cleansed by Jiang Chun, and his cultivation had been reconstructed. His current strength was a far cry from before. Now, Mu Xinglong's slap was something that even a king sage would not dare to take on, let alone an ordinary person. However, in the next moment, something shocking happened. Jiang Yintian did not dodge. Instead, he threw a punch, and a thick ray of light exploded from his fist. After the fist and palm collided, Jiang Yintian stood on the spot and did not move an inch. On the other hand, Mu Xinglong was pushed back by more than 10 steps. What? At that moment, not only Jiang Chun, even Mu Xinglong was shocked. He was a king sage, and Jiang Yintian was just a sage. Although Mu Xinglong's slap was casual, under normal circumstances, it was impossible for him to be pushed back by more than 10 steps by a sage. The third prince of the Mu clan is just SOSO. Jiang Yuntian raised his eyebrows. Today, I'm only here for him. It has nothing to do with you. This is the 9 Li dynasty of the underworld state. Mu Xinglong's eyes narrowed. If you want to touch my master here, no one can do it. However, just as he finished speaking, Mu Linchen and Wu Taojiang appeared at the same time. Mu Linchen looked at Mu Xinglong and sighed. We can't get involved in this. The moment he said that, Tombstar Wolf widened his eyes in confusion. After all, Mu Linchen had even dared to talk back to Wu Taojiang on Reincarnation Peak. Now that Jiang Yuntian had come, Mu Linchen was actually afraid. This was going on? It's not good for us to interfere in the matters between young people. Wu Taojiang said. Moreover, this is their family matter. Family matters? The 9 Li Imperial Lord is wrong. He's an abandoned son of my Jiang clan. What's between us isn't a family matter, said Jiang Yuntian. Don't waste time. After I take your life, I still have to report back. Looks like I've been underestimated, Jiang Chen said in a soft voice. He slowly stood up and walked towards Jiang Yuntian. His eyes narrowed as he said, the strategist really surprised me. There were so many professions in the world, but there were a few that were very rare. For example, Nayland Mayer's war dancer and Hua Lin Yi's spirit summoner. And this Jiang Yuntian in front of him was a tactician. What was a tactician? It was the perfect combination of martial arts and martial arts. Previously, Jiang Yuntian had forced Mu Xinglong back with one punch. It wasn't because Mu Xinglong was weaker than Jiang Yuntian, but because Jiang Yuntian's punch not only contained the power of martial arts, but also a spell. The power of one punch was equivalent to 2 attacks. Mu Xinglong was naturally forced back as he was caught off guard. Jiang Chen saw through Jiang Yuntian's background at a glance. He was still fearless as he said, a big shot from the martial pavilion is here, right? Mu Linchen and Wu Taojiang came out at the same time and didn't interfere. This meant that a big shot from the martial pavilion had come to the 9 Li Imperial Dynasty. And this person's status and strength were probably above Ji Chongyang's. Otherwise, why would Mu Linchen be so fearful? No matter who comes, I'll take your life today. Jiang Yuntian raised his eyebrows and struck out with his palm. A spell exploded from the palm print. The palm print was like a mountain tablet with clusters of flames circling around it. When it whizzed over, it was accompanied by the sound of thunder. Just a tactician, Jiang Chen said disdainfully. He also struck out with his palm, but it changed the color of heaven and earth. Jiang Chen's palm not only contained the power of martial arts, but also spells, arrays, talismans, and even sword qi. It was as if Jiang Chen's palm had merged the power of all the professions. Boom! In the next instant, when the two palms collided, Jiang Yuntian's palm print was instantly dispersed. And Jiang Chen's palm print didn't slow down at all. It had already landed in front of Jiang Yuntian's face. I knew you were strong. Jiang Yuntian wasn't flustered. He smiled disdainfully and said, You think I wasn't prepared? Boom! As soon as he said that, a mystic light exploded in front of Jiang Yuntian. Under the mystic light, Jiang Chen's palm print disappeared directly. At the same time, a divine aura filled the air, suppressing everyone present until their bodies trembled. Upon closer inspection, the mysterious light was actually a god's decree. On the godless continent, Deva's blight cultivators were the strongest. And no matter how strong a Deva's blight cultivator was, it was impossible for them to be a god's match. Even if it was a god decree, it wasn't something a Deva's blight cultivator could contend against. Moreover, Jiang Chen was only at the low-level heaven realm now. Master, it's over. At this moment, Tombstar Wolf and the 9th princess cried out in shock. They saw a mystic light condensing inside the god decree. Like a sharp sword, it was already slashing towards Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen was also slightly surprised. He didn't expect Jiang Yuntian to actually have a god decree on him. If that was the case, then this battle would most likely not be an ordinary one. At least, he couldn't use normal methods to deal with it. The Martial Pavilion wants my life so much, but I don't want to give it to them. Jiang Qin's eyes narrowed, and his mental strength exploded. His hands formed a seal, and then a ray of divine light rushed out from his soul and shot into the sky. In the next moment, before the sword in the God decree could slash down, a crack suddenly appeared in the sky. Then, a ray of divine light pierced through the clouds, broke through the sky, and landed directly on Jiang Qin's body. God-fusing technique. So what if it's a God decree? Today the God, have come personally. Jiang Qin stood tall and straight, and his hair danced in the wind. The aura of a god appeared on his body. In the next moment, under everyone's shocked gaze, Jiang Qin waved his palm and directly crushed the God decree into powder. Then, Jiang Qin pointed his finger, and the divine light burst out. With one finger, it directly pierced through Jiang Yuntian's glabella. Tian Chun, you're still alive? You're not dead. Damn it, you're not dead. At the same time, in the divine world of the nine heavens, more than 30 core gods opened their eyes, and their eyes flashed with shock and anger. This was because they felt Jiang Qin's aura. Jiang Qin also understood that he had once used the God-fusing technique and wasn't discovered by his opponents in the divine world of the nine heavens. But this time, it was most likely that he wouldn't be able to escape their senses. As if he had heard the roars of the core gods, after Jiang Qin killed Jiang Yuntian, he raised his head and looked at the sky. He smiled and said softly, "Are you afraid?" Chapter 417. More than half of the deities were under the command of the god of light and martial god. The two main deities were Jiang Qin's sworn enemies. Now that Jiang Qin had used the god-vanquishing technique again and exposed his aura, almost all the deities knew that Jiang Qin was still alive. However, Jiang Qin was fearless. Why was he fearless? Because there was an unbreakable boundary between the nine heavens divine world and the godless mainland. Deities, even deity kings, could not descend from the divine world. As long as Jiang Qin could live well in the godless mainland, the deities in the heavens could only watch and could not do anything to Jiang Qin. Of course, Jiang Qin also knew that the deities would not let him grow so easily. They had inheritances in the godless mainland. It wouldn't take long before those sects of inheritance, forces, and even families and dynasties would come to Jiang Qin to kill him. However, Jiang Qin was fearless. He was someone who had died once. To be more precise, he had died 8 times. Death was nothing to be afraid of for Jiang Qin. The only thing that worried Jiang Qin was whether the people around him would be implicated. Interesting, you know the god-vanquishing technique. At that moment, a young man appeared in the sky. His appearance caused Wu Taojiang and Mu Linchen's expressions to turn grave. Left emissary, Jiang Yuntian is dead. This is not the fault of the Ninely dynasty. Wu Taojiang said in a low voice. I know. The young man, the left emissary of the Martial Pavilion, nodded and smiled. It's just a piece of trash that died. There are many people like Jiang Yuntian in the Martial Pavilion. It doesn't matter if one of them dies. Then, can we forget about today's matter? Mu Linchen frowned. This is the underworld region, the Ninely dynasty. I have discussed with you that if you don't do anything, we won't do anything either. Of course, the left emissary nodded. However, his expression soon turned serious and he asked, what if I insist on doing something today? As soon as he finished speaking, the yin emissary appeared beside the left emissary and said respectfully, the yang emissary and the right emissary are on their way. Ji Chongyang will be here soon. Hearing this, Mu Linchen and Wu Taojiang's expressions couldn't help but become unsightly. The Ninely dynasty was not afraid of the Martial Pavilion. At least, the Ninely dynasty could contend with the Martial Pavilion when Lin Lang went in. But now, they had to go against the Martial Arts Pavilion's apex experts for Jiang Qin. The Ninely dynasty didn't need to do that. Besides, Wu Taojiang wanted Jiang Qin dead. Why would he help Jiang Qin? Although Mu Linchen wanted to help Jiang Chun, judging from the martial arts pavilion's attitude, he obviously wouldn't give up. What would Mu Linchen choose then? It seems that the martial pavilion will not let me go today, Jiang Chun said softly. He pointed his finger at Mu Xinglong's glabella and imparted some cultivation techniques and martial techniques to him. I have to go. We may not see each other for a long time, Jiang Chun said. In the future, if I'm not around, don't neglect your cultivation. Master, this is the Nine-Li dynasty. It is not their place to behave atrociously, Mu Xinglong said in a low voice. He had a bad feeling about this. It seemed that if he said goodbye to Jiang Chun today, it might be forever. At the same time, Mu Xinglong looked at Mu Linchen, hoping that his father would say something to express his attitude. However, Mu Linchen only smiled bitterly. He did not want to be involved in today's matter. The right emissary of the martial pavilion greets the royal emperor and the clan leader of the Mu clan. The yang emissary of the martial pavilion greets everyone. The Ji Chongyang of the martial pavilion greets everyone. After a dozen or so breaths, the sky suddenly darkened. Then, the right emissary of the martial pavilion, the yang emissary, and Ji Chongyang all arrived. Their auras surged and their spiritual energy shot up to the sky. They were like war gods. They were polite and knew the rules. They bowed slightly to Mu Linchen and Wu Taojiang before locking their eyes on Jiang Chun. You're just a little brat. My martial pavilion went to war for you, Ji Chongyang said coldly. Today, the left and right emissaries of the martial pavilion and the yin-yang emissaries will fight with me. You should be satisfied to die at our hands. I did not expect that a boy in the lower heaven realm could make the martial pavilion go to such lengths. This is the first time in thousands of years. The yang emissary said softly. You can end it yourself. Jiang Chun had been silent. He looked calm. Not until then did he smile. He said, mobilizing a large force? Ha! You think a few heavenly human realm cultivators are enough? Although we have not reached the 5th decay of heavenly human realm, we have reached the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd decay of heavenly human realm. Ji Chongyang raised his eyebrows. With just a few of us, no one would dare to say anything to us even if we walked across the godless continent. This is not enough. The yang emissary said contemptuously, You are just a young boy. What have you seen? The world I have seen is not something you can imagine. Jiang Chun curled his lips. Back then, in the continent of the 9 clouds, 1,000,000 gods and 36 godlords had joined hands to fight him. Wasn't that impressive? In that battle, half of the mountains and rivers of the 9th heaven were destroyed. In that battle, the blood of the deities could gather into a sea. In terms of the biggest scene, it was when Jiang Chun became the godly king. At that time, 1,000,000 deities came together to stop Jiang Chun from becoming the godly king. In that battle, almost 3,000,000 gods under Jiang Chun's command fought a great battle against the enemy. In that battle, the number of deities who died was no less than 1,000,000. However, at that moment, several celestial beings were saying that they had a great battle array. Jiang Chun almost burst out laughing. Everyone, can you give me some face? At this moment, the patriarch of the heavenly clan, the bald old man who had been drinking with Jiang Chun, appeared. He was full of smiles, holding a wine gourd, and walked to the front of the martial pavilion. Following his arrival, Ji Chongyang and the others' expressions changed drastically, and a trace of fear flashed in their eyes. Even Wu Taojiang and Mu Linchen's bodies tensed up. This bald old man was in the 5th decay of heavenly human realm. This kind of powerhouse was enough to stand at the top of the godless continent and look down on all living beings. So it is the patriarch of the heavenly clan. I am Ji Chongyang. Greetings, senior. Ji Chongyang's attitude changed, and he became very respectful. But in fact, their palms were full of cold sweat. Don't talk nonsense. I want to invite this kid to the heavenly clan as a guest. Do you all want to go together? The bald old man said. However, although he was asking Ji Chongyang and the others, in fact, the bald old man did not even consider their opinions. After saying this, He waved at Jiang Chun and said, "Kid, let's go." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.